It all kicks off in the cutthroat corporate world with a suit and tie employee walking down the halls. Yoon Do-kyung is walking stiffly, thinking to himself that he hasn't even been at the company long enough to be getting grilled like this. Stopping right in front of the boardroom, he knocks on the door and gets the green light to come in. As soon as he steps into the swanky office, the guy politely asks if his boss called for him. The boss, who is facing the window checking out the city view, slowly turns around to face him. Glancing over the paperwork in his hands, the man lets out a focused hum at the data. Then he hits Yoon with a question. Did he make that call based purely on the heat of the moment? The employee nods, right away explaining that all the red flags pointed to a massive human typo in the market. Pleased with the answer, the boss mentions that the kid's judgment was perfectly on point, but the vibe shifts when the higher-up says he needs to ask a really heavy question. He asks what would happen if Yoon was wrong, since the client would be the one eating the entire loss. Keeping a deadpan expression, the boss wants to know exactly how his employee would handle that kind of disaster. Standing awkwardly in the middle of the room, Yoon thinks about the classic industry excuse of throwing the investor under the bus. Feeling the heavy pressure, our guy gulps and makes his choice on what to say. Tossing the standard corporate PR response in the trash, he claims he would apologize to the client and take full responsibility. Intrigued by the sheer nerve, the boss scoffs, asking how a rookie clerk could ever take the fall for something that huge. Yoon takes the heat in silence, totally getting the crushing hierarchy of this place. The stock market is a brutal battlefield where info travels faster than the speed of light. It's in this ocean of numbers and charts where insane fortunes are made or wiped out in the blink of an eye. But our MC's reality is way more low-key. He just works the front desk at Useong Investors. A month ago, the daily grind at the third biggest brokerage firm seemed a little more chill. Working the counter, Yoon was patiently trying to break down the nitty-gritty of a discretionary management account. The elderly client shoots the offer down instantly, grumbling that the returns should at least beat the general average. Nodding along with the older gentleman, our MC suggests he stick to focusing on individual stocks, which totally wins the guy over. Hyped about the idea, the client places an order for Murray Electronics shares to leave as an inheritance for his grandson. Yoon hypes up the stellar choice and asks for the man's bankbook, which he hands over in a heartbeat. Meanwhile, the branch manager is watching the whole thing go down from afar, looking like he's seconds away from popping a blood vessel. Wrapping up the transaction of 110 million won, the employee lets him know the purchase went through perfectly. Our MC says a super friendly goodbye, wishing a great day to the client, who leaves with a big smile. Right after he finishes up, his phone buzzes with a new text notification. Glancing at the screen, he realizes it's just another annoying spam message about a company called G1 Autotech and tries to brush it off. Right on cue, the branch manager marches over looking like a total grouch and barks his name. Demanding a little private chat, the boss turns on his heel and heads straight for his office. Once inside, the guy takes a sip of his tea and asks in a snarky tone exactly how many new accounts Yoon opened this month. Totally unfazed by the toxic vibe, the employee casually answers that he opened 8. The manager totally loses his cool and demands to know if the kid even realizes what the annual quota for new products is. Trying to defend himself, Yoon says he always lays out the options and compares plans so the clients can pick what's actually best for them. But the boss glares daggers at him, absolutely fuming that he's wasting precious time being transparent. Slamming his teacup on the desk, the boss yells that he just needs to shove the sales down the clients' throats. Hearing that wild order, our MC lowers his head, pretty bummed out by his boss's zero ethics policy. The manager stands up, screaming that he's already in his second year at the company and shouldn't need the obvious spelled out for him. Angrily snatching a tissue, the boss rubs it in his face that the others are hitting more than 20 accounts each. While the guy wipes his mouth, Yoon claps back, saying he can't just ignore people's risk profiles. Sticking to his morals, our guy states that his actual job is to protect the clients, not just blindly hit quotas. Looking the manager dead in the eye, our MC makes it crystal clear he would never recommend a garbage product like that. The employee argues that the investor straight up preferred direct investments to chase bigger returns. With his patience completely zeroed out, the manager crushes the tissue in his fist and tells him to shut his mouth. In a move of pure disrespect, the guy chucks the crumpled paper ball right at our MC. The paper bounces off Yoon's chest while the boss makes fun of the fact that he got rejected by other brokerages. Leaning on the desk with a nasty smirk, the manager says the kid knows exactly why those places passed on him. Jamming his finger hard into the employee's chest, he demands loyalty since they did him a favor by hiring a small-town guy. The boss's finger crushes the kid's ID badge as he interrogates him about this whole rebellious attitude. Grabbing Yoon by the tie, the man spits his words, asking if he thinks getting yelled at every morning is some kind of fun game. Backed into a corner by the toxic treatment, our MC lowers his head and mutters a quiet apology. The manager doesn't back off a single inch, telling him he really should be sorry for being such a useless burden. He demands the kid at least try to earn the paycheck the company wastes on him every single month. The heavy tension breaks when knocks echo through the room and someone hesitantly calls for the boss. Another coworker pokes his head in, giving a heads up that it's almost time for his lunch meeting with a VIP client. Checking his wristwatch, the boss realizes he's running late and shoos Yoon away with a dismissive wave. Turning his head, the manager drops his final order: bump those sales numbers up by the end of the month or else. Keeping up the required submissive act so things don't get worse, Yoon just agrees in a low voice and dips out of the room. His coworker tries to cheer him up in the hallway, whispering that the manager is a total nightmare to everyone. Heading back to his desk, our MC tries to mask his massive burnout with a bitter little smile. The next day, the vibe inside the brokerage is way more chill and empty than usual. One of the guys stretches in his chair, sighing with relief about how nice and quiet the morning is. Yoon chuckles and nods, celebrating the fact that the manager went to the main office so they can actually breathe. The coworker mentions the boss went to meet up with the company's vice president to iron out some stuff. Suddenly, a female employee interrupts the chat, totally shook, announcing that a random stock just hit the upper limit out of nowhere. When they ask which asset is going to the moon, she drops the name, the tiny G1 Autotech. Hearing the exact same name from yesterday's spam text, Yoon's eyes go wide in absolute shock. Without wasting a single second, our guy starts speed typing on his keyboard to double-check the intel. The chart on his monitor confirms the crazy news, showing a massive red candle shooting straight up in a major pump. Clicking his mouse frantically, our MC can't wrap his head around how this thing exploded overnight. He quickly finds his answer in an exclusive headline about G1 scoring $1 billion contract in the electric sector. Breaking down the news, Yoon realizes the company is scrambling to drop the announcement, creating a golden opportunity. Still mind-blown, staring at his phone, Yoon realizes yesterday's text was 100% real and accurate. Out of nowhere, the assistant taps his shoulder and asks what he's doing, looking so zoned out at his desk. Feeling the heat, our guy tries to brainstorm a quick excuse while praying the dude didn't see the sketchy text. But the coworker just jokes around, asking if he's making plans for later instead of doing his corporate grind. Acting on pure impulse, our MC flips his phone screen and lies, saying he was just checking the time. The coworker playfully teases that he could have sworn the kid was reading some webtoon on the clock. Totally confused by the guy's chill reaction, Yoon is kind of lost, trying to process why he didn't suspect a thing. Then the guy points at the phone and says he can see the screen perfectly fine from where he's standing. The phone display is actually just showing giant clock numbers reading 10:42 in the morning. Picking up on his slight panic, the assistant asks if the kid is still rattled from the manager's brutal roasting yesterday. Right after that, the device buzzes in our MC's hand, grabbing his attention all over again. A new message notification pops up at the top of the screen, waiting to be opened and bringing all the anxiety back. Staring at the dark phone, he gets butterflies in his stomach, having zero clue what's about to go down next. Watching the traffic outside after his shift, the guy can't stop wondering why this crazy situation keeps looping. After all, he was absolutely positive he had blocked that exact VIP service number the night before. Opening the text, he's hit with another tip about a company called Youngnam Paper and thinks this persistence is pure madness. Riding public transit, the kid repeats the company's name in his head while trying to find any real angle for profit. Checking the charts on his finance app, he finds absolutely zero action happening with the stock. Going by basic system logic, if insider info was leaking, the big money whales would already be buying it up like crazy. During his commute, he decides to snoop around and see how other small cap stocks in that same sector are doing. Digging deeper into the data, he spots that foreign institutions are hoarding an absurd amount of shares from that group. Just like that, a sudden realization hits our MC like a truck regarding whether that anonymous contact was actually legit. Back at Useong brokerage the next day, the morning vibe is way more collaborative and focused. Assistant Choi Woo Jin praises how fast he wrapped up the analysis, even though that isn't really his main gig in the department. Stoked about their daily teamwork, the superior mentions it's been almost a year since they started geeking out over market flows together. Yoon says thanks for the constant mentoring and admits his analytical skills are leveling up big time thanks to their hustle. Sighing a bit at the rigid corporate ladder, the guy complains that it's a huge waste keeping a talent like him stuck in the operations crew. Switching gears to something more practical, the coworker asks if our guy spotted any spicy market movements lately. Thinking on his feet, our MC suggests that the semiconductor equipment and materials sector would be a stellar risky bet. Pitching his financial thesis, he points out that the Titan Murray Electronics is heavily pumping up its structural investments in that space. The assistant casually shoots the idea down, reminding him that this specific nugget was already in the morning reports. Sneaking a glance at his notes, Yoon debates whether he should drop the weird tip he got about the paper industry. Working up the guts to trust his gut, he flips his phone face down and announces he spent all morning digging into a solid theory. Handing over his spreadsheets, the kid figures his boss already had a target in mind when he asked for his pro opinion. Since this coworker is the only one who doesn't treat him like garbage for his background, he confesses he's been tracking the paper industry's profits. Thanking him for the golden tip that perfectly matches his own vibes, the guy snatches up the documents looking incredibly hyped. 3 days later, absolute chaos takes over the office as the assistant rushes forward yelling our MC's name. Startled by the sudden ambush in the middle of work, Yoon asks what's going on while getting dragged to look at a monitor. The platform screen is showing Youngnam Paper's chart going absolutely parabolic with an almost instant meteoric spike. Super pumped, the boss reveals that the cardboard industry just announced a massive hike in supply prices. Checking out the frantic buy volume, the guy realizes this price bump isn't just a trend, it's pure rocket fuel for the market. But the assistant brings up a weird point: their rival Seokpung Paper is historically the undisputed top dog in that sector. He thinks it's super sketchy that tiny Youngnam's shares doubled compared to the untouchable giant of the industry. Pitching his news-backed theory, the guy reminds him that the industry leader recently had a fire that's going to cripple their production for months. On top of that delay, Seokpung was already way too expensive, so investors FOMO'd straight into the most undervalued option on the board. Feeling like a major puzzle piece is missing, Yoon asks to borrow the mouse for a second to run the numbers himself. He totally agrees with his coworker's take, but claims the real secret sauce behind the rally is a brutal supply and demand squeeze. Clicking through the deep metrics, our MC points out that the massive foreign institutions are vacuuming up every share they can find. The boss crosses his arms, totally getting the play, and says he knows the exact strategy behind those giant buy orders. Comparing how the companies are built, he explains that Youngnam rules the niche market for packaging boxes which have fat margins. So looking at the supply chain, the final product taking the biggest hit from the cost hike would be those exact delivery boxes. Rounding out the business logic, the kid notes that the price per box is dirt cheap, but the daily demand is borderline insane. From heavy industrial parts down to fragile makeup, there literally isn't a single retail sector that doesn't desperately need cardboard. To keep their edge, even if raw materials get cheaper later, box makers almost never pass those savings back to the customer. Right in this epic moment of victory, the office door swings open, announcing the highly unwanted return of the branch manager. Out of the toxic boss's sight, our MC is totally mind-blown that the anonymous text hit the bullseye yet again. Staring at his hidden phone, he seriously starts wondering if this whole thing is a custom-made cheat code just for him. The app lights up, dropping a mysterious text stating loud and clear that Yoon was officially chosen by the system. Spooked by how accurate everything is, he notices the vibe matches the last time and tries to figure out how this bot knows his name. After all, illegal market tip scams are usually blasted out to millions of phones, they never snipe one specific target. The notifications keep rolling and promising that if he grabs this chance right now, he'll be one step closer to his ultimate dream. The text breaks it down perfectly: this VP gig can turn him into a world-class fund manager if he just accepts the invite. Seeing his exact life goal spelled out freezes him in his chair, digging up his most bitter and humiliating high school memories. Way back when his guidance counselor totally clowned him for his naive dream of becoming a Wall Street legend. The teacher ruthlessly told him that the investment world only hires kids with flawless academic pedigrees. Slamming an asset valuation book on the desk, the guy told the student to stop daydreaming and focus on his homework. Ever since that brutal rejection, the kid buried his hopes and just adopted the mindset that the stock market was basically a casino. Crushed by reality, he literally never breathed a word about this buried dream to a single soul for years. But now, as an adult, the glow of these notifications revives that crazy promise to turn him into exactly what he always wanted to be. His heart goes into overdrive seeing this digital system dig up the one true ambition that kept him grinding at this job. With his fingers shaking from pure hype and anxiety, he decides to ditch the fear and starts typing his reply on the virtual keyboard. Every single letter he types carries the heavy baggage of a lifetime of corporate failure and bowing down to toxic managers. Finishing the required word, he swallows hard, faces his fear of the unknown, and finally hits send. The blue chat bubble pops up on the screen, officially sealing his deal with the mystery sender. As soon as the system processes it, Yoon's eyes lock in with fresh determination while he waits for his life to change. With the deal done, Yoon's eyes catch a sudden intense blue flash that lights up his entire face. Holding his phone, looking half-dazed, the kid swears he just saw a blinding light shoot out of the screen and is totally confused. The app loads up a slick new interface, flashing an official welcome message to the VIP service. Shocked by the terms, he reads that the system promises to help him hit his goals, only taking a cut once his dream actually comes true. Glued to his phone, our MC notices the alerts just keep spamming him non-stop. A hardcore warning pops up stating that any attempt to cash in for personal gain outside the main quest will instantly permanently ban his access. Squinting at the text, the employee tries to wrap his brain around this endless wall of cryptic rules. Completely baffled by how surreal this is, the young guy runs a hand through his hair, wondering if he's just hallucinating. The next day at work, the jerk manager struts over to Yoon's desk and demands a quick chat. Once they hit the break room, the boss tries to break the ice by cynically joking about the heavy roasting he gave the kid earlier. Watching from afar, a coworker angrily whispers that the boss could really chill out instead of constantly bullying everyone. Another guy agrees, pointing out that dozens of people already quit just so they wouldn't have to deal with this toxic garbage every single day. Back at the table, the manager puts on a fake, friendly voice to say that the kid's confidence was always his best trait. But then the guy points out that he's noticing a way more defiant and cocky attitude from him today. Losing his patience in record time, the boss complains it's been days without a sale and accuses his subordinate of picking a fight. Without backing down a single millimeter, Yoon dryly replies that he's not trying to start any drama. Furious at the lack of bowing and scraping, the man demands to know why he isn't getting an apology and asks what his actual problem is. Keeping his cool, our MC explains he's just pitching the services like normal, offering fair comparisons with direct investments. He doubles down, saying he just gives an unbiased take on how stocks yield more while the brokerage's funds offer safety. Rubbing his temples from pure stress, the boss questions if he actually hyped up the perks and screams at him to deliver the quota. Making things crystal clear, the manager reminds him that Yu Seong writes his checks heavily, implying he should slave away for corporate profits. Glaring at the kid with absolute rage, the boss tells him to drop the annoying habit of using client well-being as an excuse. Standing up violently, the man dares the employee to prove him wrong or talk back again. Standing his ground, the young guy argues that actual financial success for the client always translates into long-term profit for the firm. Mind blown by the sheer audacity of this moral high ground, the manager freezes with a look of pure hatred and mutters in disbelief. Totally losing his grip on reality, the boss explodes, feeling like he's being lectured with a Day-1 orientation manual. He screams at the top of his lungs that the kid is just a useless desk jockey who has zero right to act like a know-it-all. The shouting match echoes loudly across the sales floor, spooking the rest of the staff who are listening to this clash of corporate values. Sprinting over to stop a total disaster, the assistant manager grabs the boss by the shoulders and desperately begs him to chill. While getting physically restrained, the man kicks and screams, swearing he's going to permanently fix his subordinate's bratty attitude today. Back at his desk after the chaos, our MC quietly wonders why he suddenly got so defensive and sharp-tongued. Staring at his blank phone screen, he questions if this crazy boost in confidence came from the app or if he's just totally done taking disrespect. Interrupting his thoughts, Assistant Choi walks over, saying the fight was super refreshing to watch and mentions he brought a little gift. Sliding an envelope across the desk, the coworker hands Yoon a pricey gift card, leaving him surprised and asking what it's for. Looking super smug, Choi says he pitched the cardboard stocks to an investor and the returns were so crazy he scored an extra account to manage. The kid politely tries to turn down the credit, saying they analyzed the market as a team and he didn't do anything that special. Showing genuine gratitude, the boss insists he's not taking no for an answer since he made bank entirely thanks to the kid's killer intuition. Seeing his work buddy being so genuine, the employee stares at the envelope for a sec before calmly accepting it. Later, at a fancy restaurant for lunch, the assistant tells his friend to order whatever he wants since he's totally covering the bill. Eating slowly, Yoon pauses when he spots the branch manager walking into the dining room with a seriously suited up VIP. Not wanting to ruin the vibe with work drama, his buddy advises they just pretend the guy doesn't exist so they don't get indigestion. But right at that second, our MC's eyes go wide in panic as his phone buzzes with a brand new notification. The mystery app drops an exclusive alert promising to leak classified intel about a must-buy asset on the market. Reading the fine print like a hawk, he finds out the new golden ticket the service is pushing is a company called J-On System. After that eye-opening lunch, the story cuts straight to the heavy closed doors of the branch manager's private office. Inside the fancy room, Assistant Choi turns on the charm and formally asks for the green light to take over the massive block trade. The boss agrees, instantly backing it up by saying his employee currently has the highest fund pulling stats in the whole branch. Hype building the sheer scale of the deal, the man reveals this is a once-in-a-lifetime shot because it's being pushed straight from the vice president. Shook by the insane corporate weight behind it, the coworker repeats the executive's title out loud just to make sure he heard that right. Looking incredibly calculating, the manager explains that a block trade this huge is never treated like small potatoes on Wall Street. He breaks down how moving billions will drop a monstrous commission on their team, claiming the assistant is the only guy he trusts to pull it off. Feeling the gravity of the mission, Choi gives a respectful bow and says thanks for the shot, swearing he won't mess it up. Pumped for the incoming glory, the superior declares that locking this deal down will skyrocket their branch to the absolute #1 spot nationally. Knowing how insane the workload will be, the assistant thinks it over and says he'll need somebody to cover his usual daily grind. The manager leans back, chewing on the request, and asks if he's got any specific name in mind for the cover shift. Skipping the fluff, Choi drops Yoon's name as the most reliable guy, which leaves the boss completely outraged and speechless. Defending his buddy's skills, the assistant swears he's the smartest guy on the team and offers to take 100% of the blame if operations go south. Later that night, the view of glowing corporate skyscrapers dominates the silent city skyline. In his pitch black office, the manager picks up a sketchy phone call and calms his contact down, saying the scam is running flawlessly. Keeping his voice low, he details that he dumped the management on the assistant and pushed the paperwork to the sharpest analyst on the floor. On the other end of the burner line, the executive stresses that he needs this win to wow the board and hints at a massive strategic payout. Showing the true colors of their shady alliance, the mystery voice implies it's high time the manager got bumped up to a main office executive spot. With a face full of pure greed and ambition, the man agrees, instantly confirming that's exactly what he's aiming for. The contact demands ironclad secrecy from the local crew, and the boss obeys, immediately wishing his partner in crime a safe trip. Wrapping up the illegal call, the manager tosses his phone on the desk and slumps into his chair, letting out a massive sigh of relief. Staring into his dark office, he gets lost in his own head, running the math on the actual risks of this mammoth deal. The guy figures his inner circle is tight, but admits he's kinda sweating over one nosy employee. While the boss secretly prays he doesn't get busted, the scene cuts to Yoon staring a hole through his phone screen. Reading the VIP alert, the kid notices a huge red flag. The system didn't scream, it just flagged J on system for observation. Freaked out by this weird shift in the algorithm, he starts speed typing and decides to run a ruthless audit before making a move. The next day at work, assistant Choi casually leans on our MC's cubicle wall and asks if he's swamped. Yoon plays it polite, saying his schedule is wide open, while his coworker hints he didn't just come over to ask for a basic favor. Giving the kid a friendly pat on the shoulder, the boss drops the bomb. He needs him to report directly to his private office starting tomorrow. Totally stunned by the lightning fast draft, the employee stammers, trying to confirm if he's really getting bumped up to the elite private investment room. Carrying his briefcase like a boss, Choi radiates genuine pride as he finalizes his buddy's temporary VIP transfer. Our MC's new workspace belongs to a total genius who graduated from the elite Hankook University. Being the absolute ace of the branch, the assistant has an insane talent for scraping data through his massive networking web. Settling into the high-end room, the kid respectfully congratulates his boss for scoring such a prime VP spot. Staying super humble, Choi brushes off the praise and swears it only happened thanks to his buddy's massive help. The guy admits that our MC was literally the only person who recognized his actual worth in this toxic snake pit. With that, he guarantees that it was their crazy success pulling in client funds that unlocked this huge block trade opportunity. Super hyped about their duo, the assistant asks his friend to keep covering his back until this mega project crosses the finish line. Wasting zero time, the boss grabs a folder and says he first needs to lay out what this giant transaction is really about. Then he drops the name. The target of the deal is a tech company called J on System, the exact same one from the mystery text. Later that night, the outside shot of our MC's humble apartment building totally shatters the fancy corporate illusion. Sitting at his desk at home, Yoon thinks hard about the company's name while staring at his monitor. He knows that closing this deal will score his boss a fat promotion and might even land him a permanent transfer. But drawing circles around the name on his notepad, he tries to crack why the system flagged them as super sketchy. The kid uses basic logic. If the price drop was just a normal market dip, the app wouldn't have bothered sending a custom warning. Worried sick about his work buddy, he figures that if this deal is legally radioactive, it'll nuke Choi's career instantly. Dead set on solving the mystery, the young guy starts aggressively digging through all the company's financial history and public contracts. Crunching the numbers, he finds out their actual cash cow isn't cutting-edge tech, it's just supplying public institutions. Skimming the public filings, the employee realizes keeping those legacy partnerships alive is do or die for their survival. The real jump scare hits when he uncovers a contract with Eugene Telecom that makes up more than half of their total revenue. Sweating bullets, the kid realizes the deal expires in exactly 3 months, and there's absolutely zero official news about a renewal. The next morning, the office is dead quiet and empty way before the official clock in time. The digital clock reads just past 7 in the morning, proving just how hardcore the team is grinding for this project. Walking in, Choi is blown away to see his buddy already deep in the trenches and gives him a warm good morning. The assistant casually jokes that usually only the sweatiest veterans of the VIP squad show up this early. Feeling a little guilty, the guy says there's no need to go this hard and tells him to take a breather. Right after, the boss drops a massive stack of paperwork, asking him to highlight the sexiest selling points for the buyers. Nodding right away, our MC mentions he'll also need to dig up and red flag the ugly parts of the deal. The boss flashes a hyped smile and totally agrees, trusting 100% that his partner will strike gold in those files. While the assistant heads back to his desk to field calls, the young guy sorts the papers, looking dead serious. Planting himself in front of the screen, Yoon dives headfirst into the financials, hunting for any trace of cooking the books. Hours later, the kid walks over to his boss's desk, offering a drink and hinting they should take a 5-minute break. Taking a chug from the bottle, Choi sighs, looking exhausted, and asks if the reports are a total nightmare to read. Sitting calmly in the next chair over, our MC drops that he already finished every single ounce of research for the case. With a dead, serious tone, the young guy gets his partner's attention and admits he did some extra snooping off the record. Confused by his buddy's rigid vibe, the assistant adjusts his glasses and asks what the heck he's talking about. Hesitating for a split second, Yoon drops a thick folder on the desk and suggests the man read the fine print first. Catching the heavy mood, the boss stammers out an okay and grabs the papers, looking insanely curious. The second his eyes hit the highlighted spreadsheets, the assistant's eyes bug out, totally floored by the bombshell. Our MC lies through his teeth, claiming J-on system was a stock he was already stalking for a while. After all, there was zero chance he could ever confess that a magic smartphone app leaked the tip to him. Flipping through the pages in disbelief, the partner is mind blown by how much dirt his coworker dug up solo. The employee admits the company's financials looked so incredibly cursed that he had to go down the rabbit hole. Realizing how lethal this is, Choi figures the owners are speed running the sale because they know a nuke is about to drop on the stock. Yoon explains the rush wouldn't be a red flag if they were just dumping treasury shares to raise cash, but the ultimate siren going off is that the shares being desperately dumped belong directly to the CEO and the board members. Disgusted by the greed, the assistant realizes the executives are just trying to golden parachute out and cash in before the company implodes. Sliding the final killer report across the desk, the young guy gears up to deliver the punchline of his all-night research binge. He states as an absolute fact that jailed to renew with Eugene Telecom and the suits are trying to ghost before bankruptcy hits. Standing his ground, the employee swears this is his final ironclad professional take on the disaster. The boss nervously asks if this is just a hunch, but the kid says he knew for sure once he read the morning filings. Pointing at the hard data, Yoon reveals the company got ghosted by the two biggest brokerages in the country months ago. Knowing how the corporate machine works, Choi connects the dots that the industry titans definitely already smelled the financial rot. Furious at how easily he got played, the assistant scrambles for his phone, saying he needs to make a panic call right now. Meanwhile, in some swanky office far away, a phone rings while the corrupt branch manager enjoys his lazy morning. Staring at a picture of an imported luxury car on his monitor, the dirty boss answers his wife's call with a massive grin. Flexing his ego, he orders his wife to sign the car papers immediately to lock down that specific model. Laughing like a maniac, the boss mocks his wife for worrying, bragging that he's got cash to burn on luxury. Jumping out of his chair, totally hyped, he paces the room and tells her to listen up for another major upgrade. Overflowing with greed, the boss tells her to completely trash the idea of that modest suburban house they were looking at. Admiring the view, the guy celebrates his transfer, already daydreaming about a mega mansion in the capital. Back in the VIP room, Choi is speaking dead seriously on the phone, demanding his contact verify the leak. Looking super stressed, the assistant thanks his buddy for the clutch favor and promises he owes him big time. Hanging up, the guy slowly lowers his phone and stares at the floor in dead silence, trying to process just how screwed they almost were. Jerking his head up in shock, he admits our MC was 100% right about the massive fraud scheme. The boss reveals his old buddy works at the giant Tayson firm, and he just confirmed they totally rejected the deal because it was radioactive. Relieved they dodged the bullet, Yoon warns that there's still one more super shady detail hiding in the fine print. Keeping his poker face, the kid drops that the evidence points straight to a dirty middleman pulling the strings. In a normal market, legit brokers only scrape commissions by setting up clean legal trades between corporations. The brokerages themselves act as the legal proxies for buying assets, and block trades are totally standard procedure. Our MC warns that the entire game completely flips when criminal elements hack into the equation. Shady schemes mean brutal market manipulation and insider trading, which literally breaks every financial law on the books. Laying out the whole scam, the employee explains that Eugene Telecom built their own in-house system, tossing J-on in the trash. The second this leak hits the press, the stock is going to absolutely tank, which is why the board is fleeing with the cash. So the mega brokerages caught on to the stench early and blacklisted the sales, calling it a straight-up criminal dump. Since no honest broker would touch it, the scammers hired a shadow broker to hunt down a greedy manager. Still buffering the sheer scale of the mess, the partner connects the final dots and realizes the company's vice president is the mastermind behind the whole black op. Deep in thought, the assistant figures an executive would never miss market whispers and is dead certain their branch manager is in on it too. Then it hits him that hardcore warning his boss gave him days ago to never let a single detail leak was just him covering his tracks. Stacking up all the dirty laundry, the guy realizes this mess is way bigger and way more lethal than he first thought. Feeling the crushing weight of reality, he concludes that going to war against both the manager and the VP would be corporate suicide. Across the room, Yoon thinks back to the app's anonymous text and wonders what the real endgame was for sending that warning. Watching his coworker completely ice over, the kid gets nervous and actually wonders if he totally botched his financial math. Suddenly, a lightbulb moment shatters the heavy vibe in the room, totally flipping the script. Frantically gathering his documents, the assistant tells our MC he needs to bail from the branch to handle a code red emergency. Walking out the door, the boss asks the kid to manage the afternoon market flow while he's gone, getting a quick thumbs up. Watching his buddy speed off, the employee finally gets the grand purpose behind everything that just went down. He vividly remembers the mystery system saying he was literally just doing his professional duty. That message basically confirmed his teardown of the fraud was a totally flawless genius move. Far away, the massive glass fortress of Tayson Securities dominates the city's elite skyline. Up on the Wealth Management Division's executive floor, the secretary announces Assistant Choi's totally random arrival from the Seongnam branch. Chilling at his fancy desk, Vice President Sim-ju-won asks his assistant if he actually had a meeting booked with this guy. Curious about the ambush, the executive wants to know why an assistant from a random branch just spawned in his lobby. Keeping it totally pro, the secretary explains the kid insists on clearing up a situation face to face. Having zero patience for random pop-ins, the boss lets out a massive sigh over his schedule getting hijacked. He instantly asks about his afternoon itinerary, and his assistant warns him he's got a power dinner in exactly 15 minutes. Tapping his fingers on the desk like a mastermind, the man figures the intel must be nuclear if the kid traveled all the way there, so he waves him in. Walking in with max respect, Choi bows deep and genuinely thanks him for the VIP pass without an appointment. Standing up, the VP introduces himself properly and extends a handshake to the guest. They exchange a firm handshake while the assistant hypes up his gratitude for the executive's time. In the bloodthirsty financial arena, Yuseong Investments was basically treated like a rookie compared to the Wall Street Titans. Even though they ranked third overall, the firm basically survived on life support by managing pension funds from their own parent group. But the game totally changed recently when their aggressive push into corporate and personal finance started printing insane profits. The absolute mastermind behind this money-making revolution was Sim-ju-won, who is now waiting for the pitch, hoping it's worth his time. Skipping the small talk, Choi sits down and dives straight into the radioactive drama that dragged him there. Pulling files from his briefcase, the assistant drops the bomb that the Seongnam branch is running a monstrous block trade. Taken aback, the VP says he never even heard a whisper about this deal and asks who the target company is. Dead serious, the assistant reveals the target is J-on system, and the play is to liquidate every single share held by the CEO and executives. Catching the drift at the speed of light, the executive realizes this whole thing is just a coordinated exit scam. Handing over the nuke of a report, Choi asks if the boss can review the data right there, which he immediately does. In Yuseong's corporate food chain, 5 vice presidents basically ran their own empires right below the CEO. Because the latter was so cutthroat, the leaders had no choice but to wage brutal daily wars for power and metrics. Being the absolute nemesis of the dirty VP Hwang Sim-ju, one scans the exact paperwork that could nuke his rival's scam. Looking up from the files, the executive asks point blank if the guest is the guy running this suicidal deal. Owning up to it, Choi listens as the leader flat out says this trade was totally doomed from day one. Taking the L, the assistant admits he was completely blinded by the millions in commission and totally ignored the massive red flags. But then he drops the twist. A kid from the admin desk helped him research and was the one who spotted the glowing red flags. Slamming the folder shut, the executive is disgusted that even the lowest tier staff smelled the rat, asking how on earth that branch is even functioning. Processing how bad this really is, he declares the actual disaster here is a black market broker running the show. With that, the leader asks if the assistant's buddy even knows how deep this corporate felony goes. Hyping Yoon's genius, the coworker swears the kid was the one who broke the fraud wide open and calls him the smartest guy in the building. Playing it safe, the VP puts a pin in the backstory and asks if branch manager Jin Tae-yo is in on the heist. That triggers Choi to remember the moment his boss slipped up and admitted the orders came straight from corrupt VP Hwang. Confirming it with absolute certainty, Choi swears the manager was the core mastermind pushing this shady deal. Exactly 1 week after that explosive meeting, everything seems totally normal at the Seongnam office. Bursting into the room, the manager throws the door open and calls for the assistant with a massive creepy smile on his face. Strutting over to the desk, the dirty boss eagerly asks if the block sale is flowing smoothly. Without sweating a drop, Choi lies like a pro, claiming they hooked a buyer and are already drafting the contracts. Totally buying the bluff, the manager slaps him on the back, hyping him up for handling such a mammoth deal on his first try. Playing the superior like a fiddle, the assistant offers to hand over the full report right there, but the boss tells him to drop it by his office later. Watching the show from a distance, Yoon knows that the $1 billion deal is actually completely dead in the water. Ever since his buddy got back from HQ, they literally ghosted the illegal scam and went back to the honest daily grind. Suddenly, a massive commotion shatters the office peace, making every confused employee turn their heads. A squad of suits flashing authority badges raids the floor, marching straight toward the manager's desk. Stopping right in front of Jin Tae-hyo, the leader of the squad demands he confirm his ID immediately. Freaked out by the raid, the corrupt boss freezes while the agent holds up an official warrant declaring a special audit on the premises. Using his best cop voice, the inspector announces the ruthless crackdown on the branch starts right this second. Slapping down the legal notice, the guy declares that manager Jin Tae-hyo is instantly stripped of all corporate duties. Totally destroyed by his empire crumbling, the dirty boss can barely form a sentence while reading the audit order. Soon enough, the scandal leaks to the press and the news blasts that the shadow broker was arrested for running a massive block trade conspiracy. The reports air out all the dirty laundry, confirming the prosecutors officially indicted VP Hwang and manager Hyo. At a cheap restaurant, Choi takes a brutal shot of soju and complains about how nasty the liquor tastes. Worried about his friend, our MC tells him to pace himself and asks if he's chugging a bit too fast. Pouring another full glass, the assistant admits he just wants to get trashed because it's all over, but the bitter taste just won't leave his mouth. Sitting in silence, Yoon just watches his partner try to drown the brutal frustration of the stock market. Slamming his glass down, the boss realizes the guilt comes from the collateral damage, mourning the insane losses of anyone who bought into J-on. With the audit tearing the brokerage apart, rumors of the crime flooded the market, completely nuking the tech company's reputation. The massive whales who got the insider tip bailed, dumping all the toxic bags directly onto retail investors. Looking incredibly depressed, the assistant vents that the little guy always ends up holding the bag and taking the massive L. Taking his own shot of soju, our MC absorbs the cold hard reality of how ruthless the corporate machine really is. Looking at it logically, he states that investing is a personal choice and your research should always match the level of risk you take. Eating quietly, Yoon thinks about how these corporate dumpster fires only exist to make average people's lives even more miserable. He knows for a fact he never would have dug into the case if it wasn't for that weird VP text about J-on. Without that early warning, the criminal block sale would have gone through flawlessly, bankrupting every client who trusted them. The market would have nosedive, dragging retail investors into a totally unrecoverable death spiral. All the blood, sweat, and cash of those regular folks would have been crushed by the greed of the suits at the top. Drinking a bit more, Choi complains that blind faith in the market always just ends in pure betrayal for the people who deserve it least. Staring at his empty glass, the assistant genuinely wishes he never has to cross paths with such filthy, corrupt professionals ever again. Right then, the coworker gets Yoon's attention in a way softer tone. Looking our MC in the eye, his buddy confesses the market would be a much better place if there were more solid guys like him around. Flashing an awkward smile, Choi admits he was super suspicious of the kid's motives when he first offered to help. Finding it funny, the young guy totally gets why someone would doubt a random admin clerk's market knowledge. But the boss waves his hands, throwing that idea out the window, and admits he was dead wrong about his friend's raw talent. Overflowing with gratitude, the man stresses that the kid's genius analysis didn't just save the branch, it saved countless small investors from going broke. Totally wiped out, the coworker rests his head on the table and mumbles a heartfelt thank you for being the absolute MVP during the crisis. Right after that, the assistant completely passes out at the table, knocked out by the burnout and the booze. Setting his glass down, the young guy watches his passed out friend in total silence. Deep down, he feels like he's the one who should be saying thanks for all the trust and mentoring he got lately. Yanking his phone from his pocket, the kid shifts his focus to the glowing screen that won't stop spamming VP alerts. The mystery system doubles down, saying he's the chosen one, and this is his ultimate ticket to permanently changing his life. Fixated on the digital promise of becoming a god, tier fund manager Yoon eats up every word of the insane offer. Without hesitating, he types out "accept" in the app and hits send, officially locking himself into the Wall Street game. The next morning, the vibe at the Seongnam branch is totally different as our MC makes his grand return to the admin floor. A few coworkers gossip about how he was the secret weapon who got the dirty manager fired. One of the girls admits that even though the corporate crime was terrifying, kicking out the toxic boss was a massive relief for everyone. Changing the subject, Choi announces to the floor that a brand new branch manager is dropping in from HQ today. Surprised by the speed, one of the clerks guesses the board just sent some bench warmer to plug the hole. Suddenly, loud clapping cuts through the chatter, demanding everyone's attention on the main floor. The assistant manager tells the whole crew to huddle up by the trading desks ASAP. All formal, he introduces the new guy who's taking over the branch starting right now. Rocking a flawless suit, the newcomer Ryutewa flashes a small smile and introduces himself super politely to the squad. Taking the wheel during a massive crisis, the new manager warns that he's about to implement some hardcore discipline. Keeping his ruthless vibe, he knows it's going to be a rough transition, but demands blind obedience to the corporate playbook. The team claps out of respect, totally down to get the office back to normal after the giant scandal. Being the first to step up, assistant Choi greets the new boss with a firm pro handshake. Right after, the boss's eyes instantly lock onto our MC, calling him out by name like he already knows him. The leader politely hypes the kid up, mentioning he's heard a lot about his recent legendary analytics. Yoon humbly says thanks, but gets immediately shut down when the boss coldly orders the admin team to stick strictly to their own paperwork. Hearing that blunt restriction, the kid and his buddy just stand there in silence, trying to decode what the guy actually meant. Staring the kid down, the new manager makes it crystal clear he expects zero pushback on the new operational rules. Killing the small talk, the guy turns his back and heads into his private office while the others unpack his boxes. Later on, the assistant manager walks over to the new boss's desk, dropping off all the requested files and logs. Skimming the signed paperwork, Ryu Tai-hwa says thanks for the hustle, never taking his eyes off the reports. With the work day officially over, he tells the guys who helped him move in that they're cleared to head home. Silence takes over the empty agency while the boss keeps grinding solo in his new corner office. Noticing the assistant manager is still hovering, the leader looks up and asks if he needs something else. Looking super hesitant, the subordinate admits he's got one quick question before clocking out. Without looking away from the papers, the new manager gives him the green light to spit it out. Working up the nerve, the guy asks what the deal is with all the random audits while Ryu flips a page and says he just needed to take total control. Staring out at the city lights, the boss states it's absolutely vital to know exactly how this branch ticks. Triggered by the answer, the assistant manager pushes back about digging up the past, which makes the boss snap back, asking if he's got something to hide. The guy admits it's awkward but accuses the new leader of witch hunting just to find an excuse to punish the staff. Glaring at the subordinate with dagger eyes, Ryu shuts him down, barking his job title as a hardcore warning. Standing up like a total boss, the manager gets in his face and asks if he had this same energy when the corrupt guy was running the show. Slamming a heavy binder on the desk, the leader throws it in his face that his cowardly silence was exactly what let the branch burn down in the first place. Radiating pure ice, the boss demands to know why he's getting so much lip on his literal first day. Dropping a massive corporate reality check, Ryu warns that this disrespectful attitude just exposes his true cowardly colors. Feeling the crushing weight of the roast, the guy drops his head instantly and swears he won't cross the line again. Turning back to the window, the leader clarifies that auditing the old files is just to bulletproof the office against future disasters. The manager insists he's not there to play executioner for the crimes of the last administration. Trying to cool the room down, he tells the subordinate to relax, earning a much more genuine apology this time. Wrapping up the clash, the manager flashes a diplomatic smile, saying their little heart-to-heart was super productive. Far away in a loud restaurant, Choi gossips to our MC that the new boss is a total rulebook fanatic. Eating his food, the assistant drops that the boss is famous at HQ for being the youngest team leader in the entire strategic division. The kid is genuinely mind-blown by the speedrun promotion and agrees you need freakish talent to pull that off. Hyped to spill the tea, the partner points his chopsticks, hyping up the monster numbers the boss pulled at the elite Gangnam branch. Back then, Ryu's flawless management literally obliterated the rival firm, locking down the #1 spot for hoarding millionaire clients. Processing the lore, Yoon figures the guy is way more of a lethal strategist than just some boring red tape bureaucrat. His buddy totally agrees but notes the craziest part is he won the war using completely basic old-school sales tactics. Going against Wall Street's toxic frat culture, the manager banned all company-funded party nights, focusing 100% on making clients actual money. This clean, transparent style was a massive hit with serious whales who preferred trusting an honest guy over a bunch of party animals. Super impressed by the integrity, our MC praises the business model as the ultimate blueprint for success. But the chill vibe dies when Choi bitterly remembers that this exact clean policy is what ruined everything. Having Vietnam flashbacks to his time at Gangnam, he talks about a spoiled brat investor who demanded non-stop abusive VIP treatment. During a tense standoff at a luxury bar, Choi actually tried to de-escalate by pouring drinks and offering to pay out of his own pocket because of the new rules. Feeling massively disrespected by the lack of corporate bribery, the arrogant whale threw his glass at the assistant, screaming he didn't need charity. The whole mess started when the investor demanded they forget the drama, but ordered them to take him golfing. The suit demanded they pick him up from his house before 6 in the morning on a weekend. Even after getting a super sincere apology from manager Ryu Tai-hwa, the arrogant rich guy doubled down on wanting to be chauffeured around. The client warned it was a make or break meeting and demanded they be perfectly on time at his gate. On Saturday at exactly 5:50 am, the car pulls up to the mansion just like the tycoon expected. Walking up to the luxury ride, the big shot grumbles that he didn't care about the money, he just wanted to see if the team actually cared. But the window rolls down to reveal the manager himself sitting in the driver's seat, politely saying good morning. Ryu smoothly explains he heard about the beef from his squad and decided to handle it personally. Sitting in the back, the client awkwardly chuckles and says the assistant didn't need to go that far to apologize. Right then, the new leader states that his employee was backed into a corner between company policy and insane demands. Offering him a ride just for today, he totally kills the friendly vibe by announcing the firm will absolutely not tolerate this kind of diva behavior anymore. The rich guy is completely shook by the sheer audacity of getting lectured in his own ride. Ignoring the outrage, the manager promises to make up for the strict rules by delivering flawless asset management and way fatter returns. Feeling insanely disrespected, the tycoon furiously asks if the guy even knows who he's talking to. Without losing his iron grip on the situation, Ryu swears he knows exactly who he is, which is why he showed up to deliver the reality check face. Because of that brutal confrontation, the enraged client pulled nearly 10 billion won out of the branch in a single day. That entire mountain of cash was wired straight to their biggest rival, Seonjin Brokerage. After the financial nuke went off, the board of directors decided the manager's actions were total corporate sabotage and slapped him with a heavy penalty. Back at the restaurant, the work buddy explains that dumping Ryu in their branch was basically HQ sending him into exile. Soaking up the gossip, our MC thinks that corporate punishment is way too harsh just for having a spine. Looking at it that way, the new leader's hardcore rule enforcing makes total sense if he's trying to resurrect the office. Knowing how rough the road ahead is, the boss warned he expects blind loyalty from everyone for this new era. Remembering how he got shut down earlier, Yoon figures the order to stick to his desk job wasn't a personal attack. The kid realizes the boss genuinely believes everyone should just stay in their lane and do their jobs. Agreeing with the logic, his coworker tells him not to take the roasting to heart. The assistant hypes up the boss's technical skills and bets it won't be long before he notices the kid's massive talent. Relieved by the solid advice, the employee says thanks with a little smile. Later on at the office, the vibe stays chill and focused during the lunch hour. The digital wall clock hits 12:43 p.m. Stretching in his chair with a coffee, the kid gets jump-scared by a fresh notification from the mystery app. Reading the backlog, the system hypes up his flawless win rate and drops the newest tip. The employee realizes it's not a panic alert, but a straight-up buy recommendation for a company called Miziong Technology. Wasting zero time, he starts speed researching and finds out they're a super promising supplier for semiconductor materials. His coworker notices him sweating over the keyboard and asks if he found a golden goose on his lunch break. Suddenly, a familiar older voice calls out to both of them from the front desk. Standing at the counter, the humble old man politely excuses himself, waiting for someone to help. Spotting the investor, our MC jumps up instantly and invites him to take a seat and get comfortable. The old guy says thanks and admits he was planning to wait until lunch was totally over so he wouldn't be a bother. Leaning in close, he whispers that he doesn't really trust the other tellers at the bank. Smiling happily, the man praises the kid for never trying to shove trash products down his throat. Yoon keeps up the friendly energy and asks what the client was eyeing so hard earlier. Ripping off the band-aid, the old man announces he wants to dump every single share he owns of the giant Murray Electronics. The kid is shocked by the sudden 180, remembering those stocks were supposed to be his grandson's inheritance. Worried about his wallet, he warns that panic selling now could trigger a loss because of market fees and taxes. But the client swears he already ran the math, predicting he'll break even, and orders him to sell the whole bag. Wrapping up the trade in the system, the kid delivers the good news that they dodged a loss and even scraped a tiny profit. Hyped about the win, the old man tells him to dump all that cash straight into whatever stock he was staring at on his monitor. The employee absolutely freezes, totally mind blown by the investor's blind faith. Staying super chill, the old guy argues he doesn't need to know the company if his favorite analyst already vetted it. With a totally zen look, he puts his entire financial fate in the kid's hands. Our MC processes this, his heart totally warmed by this incredibly rare loyalty in such a cutthroat market. Taking a trip down memory lane, the client mentions they've been teaming up for almost 2 straight years now. Turns out this sweet old man was the literal first investor to ever trust the kid when he started at the firm. Hyping up the teller's morals, the guy swears he's the only broker he's ever actually liked in his entire life. He doubles down, saying the young guy never once tried to exploit his lack of Wall Street knowledge. Since he's never been handed a garbage tip, the man demands to buy whatever mystery stock was on the screen. Holding the bank papers, Yoon thinks about how the app's predictions always play out flawlessly. But the final boss is still figuring out the actual catalyst that makes these random assets go to the moon. Sticking to his ethics, he refuses to recommend a buy until he totally understands the company's fundamentals. Because of that, the kid politely asks the client to come back tomorrow to lock in the deal safely. Surprised by how honest he is, the old man agrees to wait for the final analysis before dropping his cash. Happy with the service, he turns around and heads out, promising to return when the kid feels confident. Diving deep into the research, the system flags the semiconductor sector as the absolute backbone of modern tech. Tracking the market, Tiny Miziong stands out by focusing on the final manufacturing hardware for those chips. Clicking through the reports, the analyst hunts for the most bullish and profitable angles on the corporation. The files show incredibly steady growth and a ridiculously solid financial foundation. Deep in thought, he figures the industry is a massive long-term play, but he needs to find the trigger for instant profit. Surfing the breaking news, he stumbles on a leaked mega contract involving the Titan Murray Electronics. Articles expose that Murray is dying in the miniaturization process because of a horrifying defect rate on the assembly line. To fix this logistical nightmare, precision hardware becomes the holy grail to inspect the chips before it's too late. Holding a massive tech advantage in testing, Miziong basically becomes the ultimate savior for their partner. The next morning, the scene cuts back to the quiet lobby of the Seongnam branch. Welcoming the investor at the desk, our MC drops a super energetic and confident good morning. The client jokes he might be a bit early, but the kid offers him a chair saying his timing is flawless. Sliding a folder across the desk, Yoon hands over a fully detailed cheat sheet with all the profit guarantees for Miziong. Kicking off the pitch at the counter, Yoon explains that the company's operating profits last year were way weaker than usual. But he instantly chills the client out, explaining the dip was just from the massive upfront costs of R&D and launching new hardware. Pointing at the detailed charts, the kid swears the sudden spike in inventory is just a natural side effect of their sales blowing up. Totally sold on the nerdy explanation, the old man smiles in pure relief and asks if it's finally safe to ape into the stock. Stoked by the old guy's trust, our MC says he was just about to list the pros but gets cut off by his phone ringing like crazy. Staring at his screen, his eyes bug out, and he totally freezes at the notification that just jumped out. The mystery app blasted a code, red alert that Miziong's shares just tanked 8% out of absolutely nowhere in record time. The warnings keep spamming his screen, showing the asset in total free fall, leaving the kid totally lost in front of this financial apocalypse. Meanwhile, across the room, Assistant Choi is panicking on the phone, begging a VIP not to hang up on him during the meltdown. Watching the chart bleed out over 15%, the boss begs the investor to swallow the fear and hand their positions just a little longer. Trying to stop the chaos on the call, the guy sweats bullets, arguing that the company's core structure is still incredibly solid despite the jump scare. Pressing the phone hard to his ear, he repeats the desperate order for the client not to hand anything in the middle of this freakish market crash. As soon as the brutal call ends, the assistant collapses in his chair, letting out a massive sigh of pure mental burnout and frustration. Staring at his own dark screen in dead silence, he tries to process the size of the $1 million grenade that just went off in his lap. Not wasting time crying about it, the boss scrolls through his emergency contacts, hoping somebody has a quick answer for this nightmare. Picking up the contact, instantly guesses the assistant called to figure out the Miziong bloodbath. Totally frustrated, Choi admits he's losing his mind over the demands and complains there's zero official news on the financial portals. The Wall Street buddy leaks that MG Bank is dumping shares like a madman and points out the order came straight from the Hong Kong trading desk. Wrapping up the call, the man says thanks for the golden intel while trying to crack why the Asian HQ of that massive bank went full goblin mode. Rage. Typing on his keyboard again, he wonders out loud what the real hidden reason could be for such a violent crash. Suddenly, light tapping on the glass partition shatters the assistant's heavy focus in the dead quiet office. It's Yoon poking his head in, super carefully asking if the boss has a spare minute to talk about something sketchy. Whipping his chair around, the boss jumps up and says he was literally just about to summon him to fix a massive crisis. Cutting to the chase, our MC asks if the boss's panic is all about the inexplicable cratering of Miziong's stock. Blown away by the kid's radar, the man asks if he was also stalking the ruin of that tech company while on the clock. The employee confirms how lethal the situation is and promises details later, but demands to know the source of that insane sell volume right now. Without pausing, the boss drops the hot lead, revealing the dump came straight from the foreign desk of that mammoth investment bank. Thinking hard, the young guy asks if the assistant's mole caught wind of any horrific rumors flying around the Wall Street underground. Choi reports he found absolutely nothing bad and stresses it's extra bizarre since they aren't even in a portfolio rebalancing season. Connecting all the random glitchy pieces, our MC cracks a tiny confident smile and concludes this disaster has to be a fat finger typo. Totally mind blown by his buddy's wild theory, the assistant asks if that brutal collapse was seriously just a human typo on a keyboard. Keeping it chill, the young guy argues there's zero logical reason, unless some foreign broker completely botched the order input. Heavy silence takes over the corporate floor as the staff processes the weight of this leak that could flip millions of dollars. Out in the lobby, the old man waits patiently at the empty desk, not complaining once about his favorite broker suddenly vanishing. Another teller walks up offering to help super politely, but the client shoots it down with a smile, saying he's totally fine waiting. Right then, Yoon rushes back to his chair and begs for forgiveness for rudely ditching their meeting. The employee feels awful for making the investor wait so long, but the old guy just radiates good vibes, telling him not to sweat it. Settling into his chair, our MC listens as the old man happily asks if he finally reached a final verdict on the analysis. The kid goes dead silent for a second, feeling the massive weight of dumping his client's hard-earned cash into a free-falling asset. Hyping himself up, he grabs the financial reports and locks in with total professionalism to pitch the ultimate strategy. Staring the man dead in the eye, the analyst states with absolute conviction that he needs to buy the dip and get into Miziong right this second. Looking at the bleeding chart, the old man tries to remember the English slang the kid used to explain the market's massive screw up. Grasping the hardcore logic of the play, the man asks if the employee genuinely believes that's the only reason the price is tanking. Yoon swears on it, claiming the stock will rocket straight back up the second the foreigners realize they entered the wrong numbers. In cruel Wall Street slang, this chaotic event is what happens when a broker hits the wrong key and accidentally dumps way more shares than they meant to. Overflowing with trust, the old man orders him to smash the buy button with his entire balance, leaving the kid totally floored by the amount. Feeling the weight of that heavy bag of cash in his hands, our MC humbly tries to warn him that his genius thesis could technically be wrong. Laughing it off, the old guy jokes that it's just pure evil to gas up an old man with hopes of profit and then try to jump ship at the last second. Punching the numbers into the platform, the employee insists it would be way smarter to think twice before yodeling into a black hole like this. Ignoring the risk warnings, the client reminds him the company was already a rock-solid pick even if this freak accident never happened. Pointing his finger with sheer willpower, the investor demands the buy, doubling down on his absolute faith that the kid would never drag him into a scam. Smiling calmly, the man says if everything goes up in flames, the loss can just be a fat tip for putting up with an annoying boomer all these years. Those incredibly rare words of loyalty hit the kid right in the feels, locking in his fierce drive to make this trade the greatest W of his life. On the other side of the cubicle, Assistant Choi is biting his nails, watching the market as the clock nears 11 and the numbers keep bleeding. Glued to the monitor, our MC watches the minutes tick by with his heart in his throat, praying for the $1 million comeback. In the blink of an eye, the melted red line aggressively whips upward, marking the exact explosive V-shaped recovery he predicted. The asset's price reacts with sheer violence, shattering the resistance ceiling in a historic financial bounce straight toward massive profits. In the chaotic late afternoon, the orange city skyline frames the blessed end to one of the most draining trading days they've ever survived. Walking out the revolving doors totally dead on their feet, the boss offers to foot the bill for a victory dinner, catching his buddy totally off guard. The kid suggests their usual cheap soup spot on the corner, but Choi gets offended, demanding they eat like kings to celebrate the bag they secured. Strutting down the sidewalk like a boss, the assistant swears he already booked a 5-star spot and tells the kid to just follow his lead. While strolling chill down the avenue, the young guy quickly yanks his phone out to check on the mystery app that flipped his life upside down. Analyzing the texts like a pro, he realizes the profit played out exactly as promised, but the reaction window to buy was insanely tight and dangerous. Putting on his serious face, he decides he can't just rely on cheat codes and swears to grind market research until his brain melts. Exactly 5 days after that legendary and highly profitable incident, Yusong's massive HQ wakes up to an ungodly level of noise. In the back of the branch, the new manager and assistant manager stare at the main floor, totally mind-blown by the absolute zoo going on early in the morning. A literal tsunami of hyped-up clients is swarming every inch of the counter, forcing the tellers to scream just to get a single file line going. Sweating bullets under the insane pressure, the cashiers hand out paper tickets, seriously doubting they'll survive this shift. Shook by this commercial miracle, the boss demands to know what triggered the mob while trying to funnel the overflow to the side desks. Writing the hype, the assistant manager happily recaps the famous foreign fat finger typo that recently rocked Myeong to its core. The subordinate proudly explains that one of their local prodigies caught the play before anyone else and had the insane guts to put his reputation on the line with a buy alert. The leaked glitch forced the reckless foreign fund to buy back all their overpriced shares, instantly printing massive gains for the guys who bought the dip. The juicy scandal took over the front page of every morning paper, crowning the international disaster as the ultimate winning lottery ticket of the Asian market. Impressed by the strategist's iron resolve, the new manager gets curious and instantly asks which senior fund manager had the skills to pull that genius trigger. Dropping his voice in sheer embarrassment, the subordinate throws a wet blanket on the hype, admitting the god-tier play actually came from a basic admin clerk. Stunned by the plot twist, Ryu asks if the mastermind wasn't a financial manager and instantly pieces together who it might be. The assistant manager confirms right away that Yoon Do-kyung was the guy who caused this absolute circus at the front desk. Breaking it down, the guy reveals the investor who actually followed the kid's wild tip was the CEO of a massive local corporation. Then he drops the lore that the rich guy was so hyped about the insane returns he ordered his entire staff to move their accounts over to them. To cap off the ultimate flex, the tycoon specifically demanded that our MC be the one to personally open every single new account. Intrigued by the sheer scale of the shockwave, the manager cuts to the chase and asks what the exact profit margin on that trade was. Still visibly shook, the subordinate states the yield smashed an unbelievable 37%. Hearing that ridiculous number, Ryu is totally dumbfounded that they pulled that off in literally 3 days. On top of that, the guy points out that Assistant Choi also filled his clients' bags because he got tipped off about the market glitch. This whole saga makes the new boss insanely curious to figure out how the kid had the absolute certainty to bet the house. Since the assistant manager only heard the gossip through the grapevine, he admits he has zero clue about the technical specs behind the call. That mystery sparks a genuine urge in the leader to deep dive into his subordinate's actual skill level. Wasting zero time, the manager orders him to send our MC straight to his office the second he finishes dealing with the crowd. Totally blindsided by the random summons, the guy mutters in confusion, not getting what the boss's endgame is. Keeping his hardcore vibe, Ryu stresses he wants to hear straight from the kid's mouth the real logic that made him act with such swagger. Rounding out his thought, the leader warns that if the kid's math isn't bulletproof, things are gonna get real ugly. Because YOLO-ing like that on pure impulse would mean he was basically playing Russian roulette with an investor's cash. Alone in the dead silence of his office, the boss leans back in his luxury chair and thinks deep about the intriguing kid's name. Scanning the basic resume, he realizes the young guy tried to breach the elite division but got walled out by his average degree. Even with that massive academic debuff, the boss is impressed he managed to claw his way into the operations squad at all. Staring a hole through the paperwork, the guy tries to crack what genius strat the kid used in the job interview. Right then he spots a ridiculously long list of high-tier financial certs and is mind blown by how overqualified this simple clerk actually is. A soft knock interrupts the manager's deep dive and he immediately greenlights the highly anticipated employee to come in. Checking out our MC's polite stance, Ryu is genuinely intrigued, finding the kid's whole vibe super weird but highly promising. Standing in the middle of the majestic office, the young guy stays respectful, waiting for orders while sunlight floods the room. Breaking the ice, the boss brings up the kid's old cocky answer about taking the fall and apologizing if he ever botched a trade. Using a totally baiting tone, the leader asks again how exactly a lowly desk clerk planned to carry that kind of massive burden. Feeling the crushing pressure, the kid clenches his fists and humbly owns up to his bottom-tier rank in the corporate food chain. But he claps back firmly, swearing he's bled for the firm, grinding with total dedication and ethics since day one. Backing up his method, Yoon explains he makes it his mission to memorize every client's profile, tracking their favorite stocks and playstyles. Doubling down, the young guy states this elderly investor wasn't treated any differently, and that he always respects the trends. With max confidence, he declares he never would have hyped that buy if he didn't trust the boomer's aggressive risk tolerance. Intrigued by the hyper-detailed breakdown, the manager crosses his arms and demands to know exactly what style triggered the play. Our MC reports the man claims to love long-term plays but weirdly loses his mind waiting for gains in just 1 month. Right on cue, the client had come back to the desk complaining about the boring weight locking in 30 days as his absolute limit. Being highly analytical, Yoon concludes this behavioral red was the absolute foundation for charting the trade. Even if the price cratering wasn't some foreigner's fat finger mistake, he was dead certain the market would rebound within that exact time frame. Keeping the pressure dialed to max, the leader demands the kid drop the hard technical data backing up this super bullish prediction. Straight to the point, the guy reveals that all the other global institutions were already flashing aggressive buy signals. Plus, he points out the company pays fat dividends, making the crashed price a massive steal for the industry whales. Going deeper into the lore, the employee highlights the company's rock-solid foundation, citing huge partnerships with top electronics makers. To make the setup utterly flawless, a gigantic new production line for the tech firm was set to go live in the next few months. Hearing this genius connecting, the manager is completely blown away, realizing exactly where this thesis is heading. Confirming the hype, Yoon states their top-tier hardware made them the only viable option for a multi-million-dollar government contract. Wrapping up the pitch, our MC celebrates that the leak dropped that exact morning, making the stock skyrocket, just like he called it. Totally hyped out of his mind by the sheer genius of the analysis, the new boss punches his own palm, celebrating the kid's freakish talent. Bottling up his excitement, the manager turns around, confessing he totally gets why the team was sus about his leadership at first. Seizing the break in the heavy vibe, the young guy politely asks to drop one of his favorite literary quotes. Standing in the office, Yoon recites a hardcore line about never abandoning a conviction until the whole world sees he's right. Hiding a bit of shock at the sudden cultural flex, Ryu instantly recognizes the author and asks about the book. The kid confirms the book reference without blinking, but drops a serious warning that a crucial step has to happen before you go full stubborn. Curious where his best analyst is going with this, the leader asks him to spill the beans on this super secret requirement. Looking the man dead in the eye, our MC declares the real cheat code for Wall Street success is practicing relentless self-doubt. Flexing his hardcore all-nighter study sessions, he confesses he crafts thousands of theories and questions every single comma of his own logic. The brain drain is so brutal that the kid filters outcomes non-stop until he builds a totally bulletproof conviction. It's only after that agonizing process of destroying his own ideas that he feels ready to pull the trigger on a trade. Back to his unshakable stance in the boss's room, Yoon explains that all his swagger on that risky buy was born from that exact brutal prep. Promising to chill out a bit more in the future, the young guy hears the manager sarcastically ask if he was planning to retire from giving genius tips. Shutting down the idea of quitting, the analyst clarifies he'll just spend way more time researching to make sure every asset is a perfect match for the investor. Soaking in that elegant cockiness, the boss secretly finds it hilarious that the kid basically refused to admit he did anything wrong. Giving up the fight against the kid's absolute raw talent, the boss openly praises him for being the most fascinating corporate character he's ever met. Staring at the massive city skyline through the glass, the man declares he's going to keep a very close eye on the kid's stellar performance. Not wasting much time after the meeting, Ryu pulls his phone out and speed dials an absolutely crucial contact. Putting the phone to his ear like an absolute boss, he drops his name and breaks the ice after a long time of zero contact. Flexing a wicked, calculating confidence, the man greets the company's vice president on the other end of the line. The next morning, the sun hits the sleek facade of Yuseong Investments, bringing a much more chill daily grind. As the red tape shift finally ends, the brokerage staff stretch and sigh with relief that they can finally clock out. Noticing the young guy is still glued to his monitor, a coworker asks if he's ever going home, but the kid says he's still got work in the queue. Suddenly, the assistant rushes back into the main room and yells our MC's name, grabbing literally everyone's attention. He drops the message straight up. The kid's presence is demanded ASAP in the boss's office for an emergency chat. Setting a soda can on the glass table, the manager gives a sincere apology for hijacking his best analyst's well-deserved downtime. Sitting on the luxury sofa with flawless manners, the young guy swears it's no big deal and nervously asks if a crisis just dropped. To the kid's absolute shock, the leader grabs a heavy folder and pitches a mammoth opportunity if he's game. Sliding the game-changing papers toward the boy, Ryu flat out declares he's nominating him to work at Yuseong's main headquarters. Totally mind-blown by this insane out-of-nowhere promotion, our MC stares at the document, stuttering and unable to process what he's seeing. The manager cracks a confident smile and says he wants to hand him a massive shot at the big leagues. Staring at the internal investment tournament flyer, the kid is completely floored. With it, the boss brings up that the kid's hiring process was actually pretty wild, seeing as he tried to breach the elite division first. The young guy nods, explaining he always grinded to become a fund manager, but his weak academic stats totally bricked his chances. Getting the picture, Ryu admits the firm is pretty boomer-minded and asks what went down after he got rejected. Do Kyung recalls that exactly one day after the rejection, he got a call from VP Sim offering him his current gig. The executive promised that if he sweat blood in the admin department, he'd unlock a chance to class change later on. Hearing the lore, the boss figures, swallowing that deal couldn't have been easy for him at all. Then he asks if the kid has some insane endgame goal that makes him want to be a fund manager this desperately. Hit the direct question, our MC goes quiet for a sec, brainstorming the best way to answer. Breaking the heavy silence, the manager curiously asks if the kid has ever seen raw gold or in real life. He explains that fresh out of the dirt, the rock looks completely dull, but that doesn't mean it loses its insane value. The leader reveals his personal mission is to hunt down that hidden raw talent, polish it up, and flex its shine to the clients. With that, the boss admits VP Sim totally shares that exact same talent, scouting mindset. Connecting the dots, he figures that's exactly why the kid caught his radar, especially since HQ is currently drafting for a bigger squad. The manager says it sucks he can't just transfer him directly, explaining that the main office set up this tournament as the ultimate trial. Tapping the paper, he highlights that the bonus prize is a free transfer to literally any department the winner wants. The boss drops the lore that you can only enter with a direct VIP invite and lets him know he already forced the kid's name onto the roster. He praises the kid's hardcore ethics with the client, saying he wants to see if someone with those morals can actually survive the snake pit. Genuinely rooting for his success, the leader confesses he felt morally obligated to hand him this golden ticket. Tapping the document again, the boss declares this is the kid's ultimate boss fight to prove his actual worth. Right at that exact second, the mystery system pops up, confirming our MC was chosen to make his dream a reality. Feeling the gravity of this make-or-break moment, the employee balls up his fists, radiating pure, unfiltered determination. Locking eyes with his boss with an unshackable glare, he swears he's gonna grab this chance with everything he's got. Now outside, the young guy stares up at the massive Yuseong building, picturing his future up in those towers. Deep in thought, he runs the math and realizes it's been exactly 2 years since he swore he'd walk back through those front doors as a winner. But the kid breaks into a grin, admitting he never expected his epic return would go down via a trading simulator. In his head, he gets flashbacks to the insane pressure and the suited-up sharks that rule the absolute top of this food chain. Snapping out of his nostalgia trip, his focus gets stolen by his phone aggressively buzzing in his hand. The app blasts an alert hyping up Yuseong Semiconductor's stock and promises to back him up all the way. Spooked by the random tip, the young guy finds it super ironic the system is pushing a company from his own corporate group. Running the market math in his head, he knows semiconductors are essential, but the hardware is incredibly hard to source right now. The massive red flag is that the entire financial media is doomed, posting claiming the sector is completely melting down. Walking down the street, the analyst rejects the apocalyptic vibe but admits his bet on them is a super long-term play. Trusting the app, he figures there has to be a secret catalyst for instant profit and scrambles to find it before the tournament starts. Sweating the deadline, he pauses for a sec, actually debating whether to blindly follow the tip if he can't find proof. But the kid shakes it off, killing the lazy thought, remembering his ironclad rule to never invest without absolute certainty. Locked in on leveling up, he decides he's going to dive into the company's data exactly like he always does. Keeping his chin up, the employee marches into the main office, his confidence fully recharged to take on the gauntlet. Meanwhile, the marketing squad is panicking because their YouTube channel is dead last in subscriber rankings. Assistant manager Lee warns his rookie coworker Park that if they don't fix this massive flop ASAP, they're getting penalized. With zero options against corporate threats, the rookie just nods his head in defeat. Jumping up in a panic, the boss declares they need to create some viral content and asks if there's any weirdo on the roster. Scanning the list, the rookie says he found a super bizarre profile because he's the only basic teller competing against the elite. Assistant manager Lee instantly remembers the office gossip, recalling that this kid was handpicked by the ruthless manager Ryu. But the rookie corrects him, dropping the bomb that VP Sim was the one who originally pulled the kid's file, completely shocking his coworker. The overpowered executive was legendary in the company halls for having a flawless radar for god-tier talent. Totally mind blown, the marketing boss tries to crack why a massive whale would bet on a random front desk guy. Hyped about his theory, the younger employee suggests this kid might be the board's brand new secret weapon. Flashing a greedy smile, the assistant manager agrees this lore is absolute content gold and decides to target the kid for views. Later in the event hall, the analysts are getting set up at their stations while the camera crew preps the gear. Taking control of the content, Lee steps up and gives a super charismatic intro to all the competitors. He reminds them all that they signed the image release waivers for the channel when they submitted their apps. Wasting no time, the guy announces the interviews will be shot in the back of the room and immediately calls the first victim. Hearing his name blast through the hall, Yoon jumps out of his chair, confirming he's ready. Now posted up in front of the rolling camera, the crew tells him to give a warm shout-out to the channel's subs. Keeping it totally professional, our MC introduces himself, stating he works at the Songnam branch of the firm. Fishing for engagement, the interviewer immediately exposes the fact that he's the only one here who actually works the public counter. Hearing about his low-tier job, the corporate elites from HQ start snickering and throwing shade behind the kid's back. Trying to diffuse the snobby vibe, Lee swears it's not a downgrade and asks what drove him to enter the bloodbath. Totally ignoring the haters, Yoon flashes a smile and admits his ultimate dream has always been to become a fund manager. The marketing guy catches the drift, asking if he's eyeing the free department transfer prize. Keeping the interview rolling, the manager reminds him that to win that golden ticket, his confidence needs to be through the roof. Radiating absolute iron resolve, the analyst promises the camera that he trusts his skills 100%. Hyped by the swagger, the interviewer tells him to use the spotlight to flex his best stats and sell his personal brand. The kid explains his ultimate weapon is macro analysis, focused on tearing down a company's structural value to find the truth. Blown away by the heavy jargon, Lee praises the flex and drops the $1 million question: what's his winning stock pick for the tournament? Hit with the ultimate trap question, our MC narrows his eyes, remembering the tip from his mystery app. Noticing the awkward pause, the interviewer asks if the question crossed a line, but the kid calmly says nope. With absolutely zero fear of getting roasted, he announces to the room that he's going all in on Yuseong Semiconductors. The second he drops the company name, the focused vibe of the shoot gets shattered by people laughing in the back of the room. Caught completely off guard by a pick the market considers absolute trash, the marketing guy turns his head in shock. In the back of the hall, one of the suits literally can't stop laughing and sarcastically apologizes for ruining the take. Unable to hold back the shade, the rival justifies his laughing fit by calling the clerk's analysis totally pathetic. Flexing max arrogance, the big shot goes out of his way to humiliate the kid, reminding everyone he belongs to HQ's elite division. Starting his own recording, the cocky suit introduces himself to the lens as assistant manager Lee Chang-jae. The interviewer asks why he's competing, and the guy smoothly replies he's here for the exact same reason as everyone else. Flashing a greedy smirk, Lee emphasizes that the ultimate loot of this war is that sweet department transfer. Right then, Yoon jumps into the chat and asks point blank if the rival's current department isn't already considered top tier. The assistant manager agrees with a smirk, but admits his actual endgame was always to become a fund manager, just like the kid. Watching the interviews play out, the camera guy pivots back to the beef that just happened in the room. The pro asks Yoon to explain why on earth he picked Yuseong Semiconductors, since the choice literally made people laugh out loud. Grabbing the mic to throw more shade, Lee comments that the clerk flexes his macro skills but clearly made a garbage pick. Sitting in front of the bleeding chart, the suit mocks him, saying even normies know the demand for semiconductors is already dead. Staying completely chill against the roasting, our MC smiles and claps back, asking which asset the rival is eyeing. Then, without blinking, the assistant manager confidently reveals he's banking on the explosive potential of Hanseong Shipbuilding. Framed perfectly on camera, he brags about mixing technical and macro analysis, keeping the juicy details of his strata secret. Pointing his finger with absolute certainty, Lee declares a brand new insanely profitable super cycle is about to kick off for shipbuilding. Wrapping up his screen time politely, Yoon thanks the crew for their hustle and suggests everyone head to the main tournament arena. Right after the mob of suited-up competitors marches down the HQ hallways whispering about the brutal gauntlet ahead. Walking right next to him, a young woman asks if there was really any need to sit through the rivals' arrogant trash talk. Looking exhausted, she complains she literally can't comprehend why brokerages are always infested with these cocky idiots. Our MC is a bit taken aback by her sudden bluntness and mumbles while trying to process the roast. Turning to him with a friendly vibe, she officially introduces herself as Lee Yeon-ji, a researcher from the analytics hub. She drops that she's already in her 4th year at the firm and seems genuinely hyped to team up with the kid during the bloodbath. Shaking her hand back, he admits he's only a 2nd year and offers to call her senior, out of respect. The girl flashes a sweet smile, clarifying she didn't flex her seniority to demand respect, and praises his bold take on semiconductors. Yoon chuckles at the random support and reminds her that literally everyone else in the room laughed in his face. Keeping pace in the hallway, the researcher defends the kid, arguing they only mocked him because they were too lazy to actually understand his logic. As a battle-tested veteran of this toxic environment, she advises her coworker to just completely tune out that suit's empty barking. Yeon-ji swears from personal experience that Wall Street bros who constantly trash other people's instincts usually get wiped out of the market super fast. Caught off guard by the passionate defense, the employee awkwardly scratches his head, admitting he doesn't really know how to respond to that, but he breaks into a genuine smile and says thanks, confessing it was super refreshing to actually hear someone back up his theory. Reaching the final boss room, the organizer pushes open massive doors and reveals the exact arena where they'll wage war for the next 4 weeks. The hall turns out to be a massive ultra-high-tech office packed with cutting-edge rigs ready for hardcore trading. Showing off the setup, the event leader admits production went all out on the aesthetics purely for the YouTube cameras. Pointing at the solo desks, he orders every competitor to find their assigned seat that already has their name tag on it. Touching the cubicle wall, our MC feels a tiny surge of pride having his very own desk, even if it's just for a simulator. As he settles into his chair, he gets a friendly jump scare, realizing the veteran researcher randomly got seated right next to him. Super hyped about the RNG, Yeon-ji pumps her fist and wishes them both the best of luck in this battle of yields. Clapping his hands to kill the chatter, the organizer demands everyone's attention and tells them to check the form on their desks. The document requires them to build their starting portfolio, letting them freely pick any stocks within a 10 million won limit. Laying down the rules of engagement, the supervisor warns that daily sell orders can only happen during a super strict time window. To stop anyone from cheesing the game, the rules ban emergency sales mid-session and totally block you from buying back assets you already dumped. On top of the golden transfer ticket, the sim will reward the player with the highest return rate with a fat 10 million won cash prize. Wrapping up the tutorial, the leader demands all spreadsheets be handed in under an hour, strictly using yesterday's closing prices. With the timer officially ticking, he yells for everyone to start grinding, instantly plunging the entire room into hardcore panic mode. The frantic clacking of dozens of keyboards echoes through the office as analysts speedrun their strats before the buzzer. Hiding his phone, Yoon reviews the mystery tip and thinks it's super rough getting a guaranteed win without a single shred of context. Staring at the glowing screen, the kid admits being left in the dark is frustrating, but he's definitely not throwing away the cheat code. Completely fearless of the haters, the analyst slaps Yuseong Semiconductors at the very top of his roster, absolutely certain of its hidden value. Over the next hour, a bunch of competitors finish their math and hand their locked-in spreadsheets over to the admins. Isolated in his cubicle, our MC is still drowning in heavy brain work, desperately trying to balance the strict budget limit. Glaring at his scratch pad full of oil and naval stocks, he mutters that building a green portfolio with zero capital is exhausting. Cranking up the room's anxiety, the organizer raises his hand and shouts that there's only 10 minutes left on the clock. Racing the buzzer, the final candidate frantically scribbles in his last few picks, throwing in retail and construction companies. Handing the paper over at the literal last second, the assistant manager gives a cringe laugh, while the leader roasts him for cutting it so close. Holding every single bet in the tournament, the supervisor grins and announces he's going to leak everyone's picks right now. Instantly, the massive projector blasts to life, lighting up the giant screen mounted at the back of the corporate arena. The staff abandons their desks and forms a massive hyped-up circle around the screen to heavily judge the competition's plays. Reading the portfolios built by the company's elite, Yoon is genuinely blown away by how high-tier his rivals' strategies actually are. Walking up to him through the crowd, researcher Yeon-ji jokes that the kid looked like he was fighting for his life trying to finish that list. The veteran laughs, admitting his face was so intensely focused and stressed that she was literally too scared to talk to him earlier. Chuckling to kill the tension, the employee confesses he had to fry his brain trying to make the budget math work out perfectly. Out of nowhere, the assistant manager's arrogant voice cuts through the good vibes, asking if the teller is already terrified of losing. Annoyed by the unprovoked bullying, our MC turns his head looking confused and asks what the rival is trying to imply this time. Pointing an accusing finger at the big screen, Lee loudly announces that Hanseong Shipbuilding is also sitting on the kid's roster. Dripping with sarcasm, the suit asks if the kid intentionally copy-pasted his genius play right after listening to his god-tier interview. The researcher completely loses her cool over the workplace bullying and tries to step in, but Yoon calms her down, swearing he's got this. Milking the corporate drama, the camera guy zooms in on the rival, asking to film the beef so they can clip it for YouTube. With killer eyes and an unshakable stance, the analyst stares down the assistant manager, telling him he's way too full of himself. Totally blindsided by the rookie's brutal clapback, the suit mutters in shock, completely forgetting how to speak. Turning his back with absolute disgust, our MC throws it in his face that having a massive ego does absolutely zero for you in the real market. Walking away from the circus, he mocks the guy, saying he also used to act like the main character of the universe back when he was going through puberty. Dropping the mic, Yoon sarcastically pities the suit, saying it's a shame that maturity phase seems to have missed the guy entirely. Meanwhile, up in the boardroom, VP Sim is analyzing the tournament rosters with a hardcore judging look on his face. One of the directors scratches his chin, complaining about the trash talent pool, and the boss agrees, saying the other divisions sent total scrubs. Frustrated by the mid-tier roster, the board member asks if there's at least one solid player, specifically name dropping Lee Chang. Skimming the assistant manager's file, the VP remembers the kid belongs to the highly coveted investment banking division at HQ. The director glazes the guy, claiming his direct exposure to top executives gave him a flawless read on how mega corporations actually operate. Reviewing the stats, the director concludes that assistant manager Lee is hands down the best draft pick of the bunch. Just then, one of the XX asks if this whole YouTube reality show gimmick is actually going to farm any views. The marketing guy furiously nods while sweating bullets, swearing the metrics will go crazy if the editing is fire. Taking the floor, VP Sim reminds the room that this entire meeting is only happening because of Lee's viral idea. Staring the guy down, the top boss declares that the pressure to deliver views is now 100% on his shoulders. Breaking the heavy tension, a voice announces the next candidate is walking in to face the judge's gauntlet. The directors track the rookie's entrance with razor-sharp analytical eyes. Stopping right in front of the firing squad, our MC says good morning and introduces himself as the teller from the Seongnam branch. Recognizing the kid instantly, the VP cracks a tiny smile and mentions it's been a hot minute since they last crossed paths. Keeping his manners locked in, Yoon replies he's been doing great, entirely thanks to the boss's help. Chuckling at the stiff formality, the executive mentions manager Ryu has been hyping up the kid's god-tier performance at the branch. Caught off guard by the random shout-out, the employee just nods and gives a super polite bow. Watching from the sidelines, two coworkers whisper hatefully, totally jealous and suspecting some shady backdoor connection between the two. Triggered by a top boss giving VIP treatment to a basic clerk, one of them orders a deep dive into whatever sketchy stuff is happening at that branch. The suit figures the kid absolutely must be hiding some freakish skill to command that much respect from the board. Getting back to the official roast, Chief CO formally introduces himself and praises the kid's solid portfolio. But the judge cuts straight to the chase, demanding to know why there is literally zero tech exposure on that list. Defending his thesis, our MC argues that the global economy is getting choked out by inflation and insanely aggressive interest rate hikes. Reading the file, the judge agrees and lists that the kid went all in on boomer economy stocks like oil, steel, and retail. Staying ice cold during the interrogation, the analyst confirms he built his entire strat around the massive macro trends happening right now. He breaks down how insane money printing pumped tech to the moon, but now the old-school traditional market is taking the wheel. Diving deeper into the logic, the kid points out that skyrocketing commodity prices are dragging these classic companies straight up. But another director cuts him off, demanding to know why on earth he dragged the cursed construction sector into this apocalyptic setup. Common sense says that when loans get expensive, it totally paralyzes massive residential real estate projects across the country. Without flinching, Yoon claps back, revealing his bet is strictly focused on heavy industrial engineering, not building houses. Catching the genius play, the judge realizes the massive spike in oil prices is going to trigger a colossal demand for building new factories. Our MC nods his head, confirming the boss's flawless read on the situation. Finishing the combo, the kid leaks that the construction firm is inches away from locking down $1 billion contract in Asia. Smelling the blood in the water, foreign whales already spotted the shadow play and started vacuuming up every share on the market. Watching the whole thing in silence, VP Sim nods, incredibly satisfied with the kid's razor-sharp lethal answers. Taking the mic back, Chief CO respects the kid's unshakable faith in the old-school economic comeback. But the judge spots a massive glaring plot hole, pointing out that the biggest bag in the entire portfolio goes completely against that logic. The sheer weight of this massive contradiction pulls the VP's curious eyes straight back to the kid's document. Staring down the candidate, the judge drops the nuke, asking if it isn't completely suicidal to YOLO into a tech sector focused on chips right now. The executive reminds him that these companies doubled their output during the pandemic and are now living a nightmare with unsold inventory. Hearing the ruthless interrogation, our MC secretly thinks that this director's questions always snipe the absolute weakest link. Instantly, the kid's brain flashes back to his very first job interview during the firm's brutal draft process. Back in that distant memory, the exact same VP demanded to know what his true professional stance would be when facing investors. The suit demanded to know if he would sell fake opium to clients or if he would actually tank the chaos of a volatile market. Snapping back to the current boss fight, the employee sits in his chair radiating that exact same unshakable iron will. Shattering the silence, Yoon declares loud and clear that there is literally zero way to predict the future with absolute certainty. Dropping a harsh reality check about the job, the analyst swears his true mission is just fighting like hell to buff the probability of profit. The brutal, mature honesty of that answer leaves the head judge momentarily stunned and totally disarmed. But our MC flips the script, instantly announcing there is exactly one pillar where he can offer absolute bulletproof guarantees. The kid states that his certainty comes purely from his hardcore study ethics, swearing he'll always grind in the trenches right next to the client. Dropping a metaphor, he compares himself to a captain steering a ship through a chaotic ocean, plotting the safest route through a hurricane. The analyst claims he'd take brutal, honest uncertainty over a comforting lie any day, striving to be a genuine partner. Wrapping up his moral manifesto, the young guy proudly declares that this is the exact kind of high-integrity manager he's fighting to become. The panel of executives absorbs the epic speech in dead silence, feeling the heavy weight of every word he just dropped. Pivoting back to the cursed portfolio, Yoon drops two massive technical reasons why that specific stock is totally immune to the crash cycle. With surgical precision, the analyst points out that the company's ultimate trump card is being a massive supplier for advanced hardware. Hearing that juicy telecom acronym, the VP crosses his arms, finally putting the tech puzzle together. Yoon explains that going back to normal killed consumer tech spending, but global infrastructure is still absolutely starving for chips. The entire planet is scrambling in a desperate race to upgrade their networks, spamming new antennas everywhere to dominate high-speed coverage. With lockdowns over, people flooded back to the streets demanding lightning, fast mobile connections on every single corner. The kid drops the hammer, revealing the company is the undisputed tech leader and is secretly negotiating with the biggest foreign telecom giant. Moving to phase 2 of his defense, he decides to completely debunk the terrifying myth about the factories having too much capacity. The employee floats the very real possibility that the media's panic over chip overproduction is just one massive fake illusion. Pulling up the industry maps, the kid proves the production spike only happened in China's low-tier basic foundries. But because the tech barrier is so brutal that extra supply only affects garbage-tier electronics and doesn't touch the high-end hardware at all. With that, he brilliantly concludes that the luxury memory chip market will stay completely untouched and insanely profitable. Blown away by the god-tier research chief, CO thanks him for the breakdown while frantically scribbling notes on his clipboard. Highly satisfied, the VP secretly admits the kid's defense was an absolute masterclass on the global system. Taking over the panel, the executive announces they're out of questions and dismisses the kid with maximum respect. Our MC stands up and gives a deep, respectful bow, super grateful he finally got the chance to flex his true worth in that room. As soon as the young guy turns his back and walks toward the exit, the top boss's calculating eyes track his every single move. With a tiny smirk, the leader mutters the kid's name, absolutely certain he finally found the diamond he's been hunting for. Later, on a packed subway car, the crushing exhaustion of the day finally hits our MC on his commute back home. Nearby, some random commuter sighs heavily, complaining that the stock market has been nothing but pure pain lately. Doom scrolling on his phone, the guy grumbles that the finance YouTube channels fell off and just parrot the same garbage takes. But then he stumbles onto a fresh video with clickbait about an investment deathmatch between the brokerage's top suits. Curious about the corporate drama, the worker clicks the vid to see who these supposed financial geniuses actually are. The screen shows the exact clip where Yoon locks in his highly controversial bet on a sketchy sector during the reality show shoot. Totally mind blown, the commuter thinks the kid lost his mind betting on that, especially since he's just a basic counter clerk. But when the video cuts to the assistant manager's pick, the viewer nods along, praising the guy's super safe shipbuilding logic. Back in the hall after the grilling, the arrogant Lee Chang Jae walks up to researcher Yan Ji, looking down his nose, asking if she doesn't trust her own skills. Being super blunt, the suit asks if she only aped into Hanseong shipbuilding because of the genius tip he dropped earlier. Watching the cringe play out from afar, Yoon can't help but chuckle internally at the rival's massive ego and zero self-awareness. Far away from the war zone, the marketing team is watching the raw footage, absolutely mesmerized by the reality TV drama, even thinking about leaking it online. Super hyped, the rookie grabs his boss's attention, swearing they just hit the absolute jackpot with this footage. Trying to keep it professional, the marketing manager tells the kid to chill out and sit back down. Checking the analytics, the boss remembers grinding for 2 years just to hit 10,000 subs, celebrating that episode 1 alone just pulled 2,000 new fans. The rookie hypes the W even more, revealing the finance community is going nuclear and begging for the next drop ASAP. Soaking up the massive win, the boss silently realizes the board just handed them an absolute goldmine. Keeping the content mill churning, the leader asks to confirm if the teaser for episode 2 dropping today is already live. Brainstorming the ultimate clickbait, the manager orders the rookie to clip VP Sim's shook reaction to Yoon and post it as a YouTube short. In the middle of the hype, the youngest guy's eyes go wide, remembering he was supposed to dig into our MC's mystery past. Suddenly looking dead serious, the rookie warns that the lore behind this front desk teller is way crazier than anyone here thought. He spills the tea that the kid literally predicted that famous foreign stock dump and told an investor to buy the crashed asset. Dropping the ultimate mic, the assistant confirms the client trusted the insane play and walked away with a monstrous bag in record time. Completely floored by the leak, the marketing manager demands to know if this wild rumor is actually verified by solid sources. The rookie swears he double-checked it with 2 different employees at Seongnam and says the entire branch won't stop talking about it. Smelling the viral engagement, the boss rests his chin on his hand and instantly decides it's time to up the stakes on the channel. The leader drops a direct order for the crew to raid the branch and interview everyone to expose who this MC really is. Flashing a purely corporate greedy smile, the manager declares that episode 3 is going to be a complete documentary on the rise of this mystery clerk. The next day, the massive line at HQ's cafeteria proves that lunch hour at the main office is always a total zoo. Already chilling at a table with his tray, Yoon pays attention as his researcher buddy strikes up a conversation. Sitting across from him, Yeon Ji stealthily points to the other side of the room, saying she needs to spill some tea about the assistant manager. She leaks a rumor that the arrogant suit actually pressured another competitor into panic selling an asset mid-session. Quickly checking his phone, the analyst connects the dots and figures this sketchy market manipulation happened super early this morning. The veteran says it was super weird because she was tracking the live leaderboard and saw the rival dump the stock before it even made a profit. Making the whole thing even sketchier, she notes that the exact stock the guy trashed completely tanked right after dragging the whole sector down with it. Putting the puzzle together, our MC realizes the rich kid's market radar was actually absolutely flawless. Disgusted by the dirty play, Yeon Ji questions why Lee is messing with other people's portfolios in the middle of a tournament for a promotion. She crosses her arms, complaining she hates that toxic manipulative behavior, while the suit keeps flexing and laughing loudly with his fanboys at the other table. Dropping the drama, Yeon Ji switches gears and praises the fascinating strat our MC cooked up for the tournament. Flashing a friendly smile, she mentions he spent the entire time looking insanely focused and curious. The researcher confesses her own portfolio is super basic, choosing to only invest in the clothing brands and coffee chains she actually uses every day. Completely amazed by the crystal clear logic, the young guy praises her, saying that is the literal textbook definition of true value investing. Waving off the compliment, the veteran admits the daily grind at HQ has been so brutal that she only entered the tournament as an excuse to breathe. Understanding the crushing weight of corporate burnout, the analyst gets serious and asks if she plans to diamond hand her positions until the end. The chat gets brutally interrupted when assistant manager Lee walks up, resting his hand on the rookie's chair with an aura of pure superiority. The suit takes a shot at his rival, claiming that if it weren't for the garbage bet on Yuseong Semiconductors, the silver medal would be his. Keeping his gaze unshakable, the employee stares down the enemy, showing zero fear at the unprovoked trash talk. The rich kid mocks him, pointing out that tech stocks bled even more today, and sarcastically advises the kid to dump his bags tomorrow before he goes bankrupt. Turning his back, totally satisfied with his own roast, Lee tells the clerk to keep holding onto the shipbuilding stock just so he can scrape up some crumbs at the end. Without even changing his tone, our MC just wishes the cocky rival a good shift, completely ignoring the insult. Furious at the guy's audacity, the researcher loses her temper and complains about his childish behavior in the middle of the cafeteria. But Yoon cracks a confident, wicked smile, pointing out that crushing a guy that annoying at the finish line is going to make the W taste 1,000 times sweeter. Caught off guard by the rookie's unbreakable swagger, the girl's eyes go wide, slightly impressed by how iced cold he is. The kid's hardcore determination gets interrupted by his phone vibrating aggressively on the cafeteria table. Asking his coworker for a quick second, the analyst pulls out his device to see who's spamming him right now. The screen shows a text from his absolute bro Choi Woo, Jin anxiously asking if the risky chip bet is actually going to print. Starting to type back, our MC realizes his assistant manager back at Seongnam is also getting paranoid about the bleeding market. He chills his buddy out, texting that he is 100% confident in the play because he grinded the company's fundamentals to the bone. Reading the reply, Yoon is shocked to find out that even the strict manager Ryu Tae Hwo was hovering around his buddy's desk to check if the tech thesis was still alive. The messages keep rolling in, and Choi reveals that the entire branch and his old clients are praying daily for him to absolutely sweep the tournament. Sending a super hyped sticker, the boss orders his friend to bring the trophy home, pulling a genuine smile and a big thank you from the kid. Noticing his mood flip, the researcher asks if it was good news, and he warmly mentions the squad from his old office sent some hype. With his heart warmed by his crew's loyalty, the employee puts his phone down, promising to bleed for the win so he doesn't let anyone down, but then it buzzes again. Scratching his chin, he looks away curiously, wondering if Assistant Choi forgot to drop some extra gossip. However, the glowing notification reveals the mystery app decided to randomly show up again. The text declares that the analyst's god-tier vision highly satisfied the system and announces a reward upgrading his subscription tier. Completely lost by the digital update, the young guy stares at his phone, having zero clue what perks this level up actually gives him. Solving the mystery, the app announces the algorithm tweaked reality to favor his dreams and leaks a terrifyingly accurate stat about Yuseong Semiconductor's future. Pure shock takes over our MC's face as he reads a code red alert from the system. The unstoppable Hanseong shipbuilding just got flagged as a highly radioactive asset. Cutting back to the marketing team's studio, the director tells the editor to mark the timeline before they roll the next reality interview. Already posted up in the chair with his mic, Yoon politely greets the crew, waiting for the next round of questions. Trying to break the ice, the interviewer mentions it's been a hot minute since their last exclusive sit-down. The analyst totally agrees, chillingly confirming he went ghost from the cameras for a few weeks. Laughing, the channel guy jokes that their first meeting felt like a straight-up interrogation because of the beef with the other players. Flipping to a dead, serious tone, the marketing lead cuts to the chase and demands the kid explain what the hell just happened to the market. Keeping his trademark ice-cold posture, the analyst drops exactly 2 words: hang shipbuilding. Flashing back to the start of the chaos, the story rewinds exactly 1 week, zooming in on the busy tournament floor. Back then, our MC was locked in at his cubicle staring at the charts while his phone alert flagged the naval company's incoming doom. Processing the app's insane warning, he couldn't wrap his head around how a titan that size was about to face plant into the dirt. Diving into his memories, the guy recalled that the only other time the system dropped a danger alert was to expose the J-on-system criminal fraud. Glued to the glowing screen, he instantly figured that a scam of that level could literally never happen inside a shipbuilding giant. Flexing his massive industry knowledge, the employee remembered the builder almost went bankrupt, but got bailed out by a massive injection of government cash because it's a vital national asset. Because of that, the young guy was dead certain the corporation was running under hardcore public oversight, just waiting for the perfect time to be sold clean to the private sector. That meant strict audits were constantly tearing through their books, way harder than any normal company. Running the logic, he instantly deduces there has to be some catastrophic news about to detonate. But the kid thinks it's super weird since supply and demand are looking great and even the National Pension Fund is buying heavy bags. Since the stock trend looks totally fine, he decides to hunt for external catalysts and starts deep diving the web. Reading articles about the Korean naval industry warring with China, the analyst gets spooked and starts connecting the red strings. Normally, he would have totally ignored this news, but with the app screaming at him, there was zero chance he was letting it slide. Right on cue, Assistant Manager Lee struts into the office, radiating that same toxic arrogance. Walking past his rival's desk, the suit mocks him, asking if cramming for the test this late in the game even makes a difference. Our MC just turns his head and politely waits for the guy to finish his rant. The rival clarifies he's talking about the naval company and asks what the point is of wasting time analyzing it now. Leaning on the cubicle, the boss taunts him, saying the kid won't find the answers just by staring at a customer service screen. Full of himself, he repeats his sarcastic advice for the teller to diamond hand the stock. Totally unfazed by the roasting, the young guy calls the assistant manager by his name in a super chill tone. Grabbing the veteran researcher's attention, he claps back, saying the man clearly doesn't bother researching his bags after he buys them. Locked onto his monitor, the analyst swears he audits his own picks dozens of times a day, always paranoid that he messed up the math. He claims that only through that relentless self-doubt and hardcore studying can he build actual diamond-tier confidence in his trades. The suit's face instantly drops, absolutely furious at hearing the rival repeat that a massive ego is the worst trait a trader can have. Going back to his keyboard, our MC warns there's still time to fix things instead of just standing there acting sarcastic, suggesting the enemy burn that energy actually auditing his own portfolio a bit harder. Massively offended by the reality check, Lee tries to bite back by yelling the kid's name. All this heat grabs the curious eye of the video producer filming the analysts. Spotting the camera, the boss tries to save face by adjusting his tie and mocks if all that studying just led him to buy dead semiconductor stocks. Turning his back with max swagger, he tells the clerk to keep grinding hard on those garbage analytics. As soon as the guy leaves, the veteran researcher peeks over the cubicle wall. Blown away by the kid's words, she asks why he sat there taking it when he's got such a killer silver tongue. Stretching in his chair, the young guy admits he thought it was a waste of time, but agrees the arrogant prick really crossed the line this time. Super hyped, the girl cheers him on to keep fighting back, disgusted that the rich kid acts like he owns the truth. Packing her bags to leave, she turns to the cameraman, praying the lens caught the entire smackdown for the reality show. The next day, the sun lights up the brokerage's massive corporate HQ. Walking up to her desk, the researcher says good morning but stops mid-sentence when she sees her co-worker looking like an absolute zombie. Spooked by the massive dark circles under the kid's eyes, she says hi and asks what the hell happened to him. Totally drained, the analyst just mumbles that he spent the entire night drowning in heavy thoughts. Being a real one, the veteran slides a coffee across the desk, but the kid says he already grabbed a cup. Sitting down, she figures with all his grinding, he probably hasn't even noticed the tournament episode is already live. Our MC shakes his head firmly, stating he intentionally avoids watching those company YouTube videos. He explains that watching himself on screen makes him cringe so hard it forces him to act like a robot on camera. The girl crosses her arms and sharply notes that the guy who should actually be embarrassed is standing right over there. She points at the assistant manager getting mobbed by his fanboys, exposing that the internet hype just inflated his ego even more. Glaring at the scoreboard showing the suit at the top, the researcher jokes she'd love to just delete the rival's name from the list. Changing the subject, she hypes the kid up, saying he went totally viral among the semiconductor investors. The young guy blinks in shock, having zero clue how his losing bet generated any positive hype. The coworker explains the market is in total panic mode, full of desperate bag holders who are too terrified to sell at a massive loss. Because of that, his bullish take on the video basically acted as copium for the suffering crowd, making her genuinely happy for his clout. The gossip gets cut off when the admin team marches into the room, clapping their hands to kick off the event. The head organizer shouts that anyone planning to dump their bags today needs to hand in their forms immediately. Instantly, a bunch of suits rush the admin desk to turn in their transaction paperwork. Walking up to the organizer, our MC hands over his clipboard while the judge chats about the naval pics. The second the guy glances at the kid's paper, he completely stutters in shock and asks for a second to verify the data. Keeping his poker face, the analyst confirms his play and politely asks what the issue is with the order. The supervisor points a shaking finger at the document, trying to make absolutely sure he wants to liquidate that specific asset. Without hesitating for a microsecond, the rookie confirms the totally insane sell order. Raising his voice so the whole room can hear, he orders the total liquidation of every single naval share he owns. The office instantly devolves into a chaotic mess of shocked whispers, with competitors' mind blown that he'd abandoned the best stock in the game. Shattering the stunned silence, the assistant manager's obnoxious mocking laugh echoes across the entire trading floor. Walking right up to his rival, the rich kid finds the whole thing hilarious and brings up the lecture about having a massive ego. Going full sarcastic, he asks if his roasting yesterday hurt the kid's fragile ego so bad it forced him to rage, sell his whole bag. The suit doubles down on the joke, swearing the teller only made that reckless move out of pure childish spite. Blindsided by the wild accusation, our MC furrows his brow in pure confusion and asks what on earth the guy is even talking about. Completely ignoring the enemy's circus act, the analyst turns his back and calmly sits down in his chair. The researcher leans over, finding the kid's ice-cold reaction hilarious, but quickly notices something weird about his vibe. She repeats his confused answer, trying to crack how he manages to be so totally immune to the corporate bullying. The kid raises an eyebrow, asking if he really looked that bored, and the girl confirms he looked absolutely miserable earlier. Flashing a friendly smile, she praises his hardcore move but asks what he's going to do if the stock goes to the moon today. Resting his chin on his hand, the young guy states that if it pumps, it just proves his math was garbage from the start. Checking the chart with the locked-in profits, he says he's 100% fine with the bag he managed to secure. The digital clock ticks forward, hitting 8:30 a.m., revving the engines for the market open. Buried in his monitors, our MC tracks the data flow, typing furiously on his keyboard. On the other side of the wall, the veteran sweats bullets, noticing the sell volume for the naval stock is insanely high. Locked onto the screen, the analyst notes it's super normal to see heavy manipulation in the pre-market minutes. With time crawling by, he tells his coworker to chill out and not jump to any crazy conclusions until the final bell rings. The system timer finally rolls over to exactly 9 a.m., signaling the brutal opening of the stock exchange. In the blink of an eye, the screens are swamped with red alert boxes flashing in absolute panic about the naval company. The chart line starts whipping violently in a brutal, bloody tug of war between the bulls and the bears. But the war ends almost instantly when a colossal blue candle drops like a nuke, tearing the screen downward in a total price collapse. Shock freezes our MC's face as he watches the numbers melt in a free fall, proving his paranoia was absolutely justified. Staring at the cratering screen, the researcher realizes the pension fund is dumping everything and asks if he saw this coming. Since the kid denies it, the girl is totally lost on how he perfectly timed the crash. Breaking down his logic, Yoon mentions the asset pumped too hard yesterday, so he figured it was safer to liquidate and lock in the gains. Blown away by his scary accuracy, the veteran asks if he was just born with Wall Street instincts. He takes the compliment with a chill smile while she jokes he's about to become way more annoying than their snobby rival. Glued to the monitor, our MC points out the free fall pause, noting they still haven't dropped an official press release. Sketchy about the radio silence, the kid runs the math. If this was a real crisis, the company would have addressed it first thing in the morning. Hours drag on in the office as the morning session finally wraps up. With them finally off the clock, Ji tells her coworker they should go grab lunch. She asks why he's still obsessively stalking the naval stock when he already dumped all his bags. The analyst explains the stock is bleeding while the rest of the sector is pumping, making it an epic case study. The veteran agrees that grinding knowledge is cool but insists they need food first, which finally wins the kid over. Suddenly, a desperate scream rips through the dead, silent corporate floor. Totally panicking, assistant manager Lee screams the naval company's name while everyone stares at him like he's crazy. One of the bosses instantly loses his temper and tells him to shut his mouth, saying he's already watching the massacre on the screen. Smelling the disaster, Yoon tells his coworker to hold on a sec and rushes back to his rig. He frantically clicks his mouse, refreshing the main financial news portal. The shock hits when the breaking headline reveals the company's Mammoth 20 ship contract was just instantly terminated. The company's chart nose dives into a terrifying free fall as the news of the cancelled international deal spreads. A multi-billion-dollar deal just got flushed down the toilet in a millisecond, vaporizing the corporation's market cap. Confirming the unrecoverable nuke, our MC calls the news apocalyptic while the entire room goes into a collective meltdown. Across the room, the arrogant assistant manager is pulling his hair out, completely destroyed by his portfolio getting wiped. Yoon coldly concludes it's game over for the shipbuilders, and the researcher suggests they finally go eat. Feeling a massive wave of relief for dodging that lethal trap, the young guy agrees and follows the veteran out. Even a full 2 days after the announcement, the cursed asset is still drilling to the core of the earth in colossal losses. On another day at the office, the marketing rookie corners the analyst, demanding to know how he predicted the naval nuke. Keeping his humble act up, the kid forces an awkward smile and lies, saying it was literally just dumb luck. But the coworker immediately calls his bluff, leaking that the security cams caught him stalking the company for 2 days before he dumped it. Busted by the marketing team's detective work, our MC lets out a nervous laugh and runs a hand through his hair. Flipping to a way more serious pro vibe, he decides to stop capping and be 100% real about his strat. He reveals that whenever an asset in his bag keeps pumping endlessly, his brain just gets flooded with pure anxiety. Pulling up the reports on his screen, the analyst explains that the tiniest glitch in the market puts him on maximum high alert. Soaking up the hardcore mindset, the channel guy asks if he managed to trace the source of that invisible glitch. The kid nods, claiming he finally decoded the radioactive warning the market was trying to send him. Yoon breaks down how he read a foreign article saying skyrocketing raw material costs were threatening the sector since they couldn't beat China's pricing. Using that as a base, he dug way deeper and found out Korean builders were getting suffocated by the ship owners. The billionaire clients were making completely unhinged demands for design changes, totally strangling the profit margins of the builds. Fascinated by the backstage drama, the coworker asks if all that hidden rot gave him the green light to hit the sell button. Throwing a curveball, the young guy says nope, explaining the ultimate trigger was the fact that the price pumped for 3 straight days. To him, that irrational artificial spike was the mathematical proof, screaming that it was time to jump ship. The marketing bro is blown away by the precision, praising the flawless mix of skill and RNG on timing the crash perfectly. Pulling up the live tournament leaderboard, the coworker points out the teller is crushing it in first place and asks if he's confident he'll take the crown. With an unshakable stance, our MC swears he will, but promises he won't drop his guard until the final buzzer sounds. The channel guy laughs at the sudden flex, pointing out the analyst is usually super humble in his interviews. Flashing a wicked smirk, Yoon justifies the swagger, warning that he's still holding one massive trump card for the endgame. A new day breaks, lighting up the brokerage's Mammoth HQ in the capital. Walking into his cubicle full of energy, the analyst drops a friendly good morning to his teammate. The veteran immediately ambushes him with questions, demanding to know how he figured out the Mahjong typo glitch from the past. Ji says the lore dropped in episode 3 of the reality show, and now the entire office is losing their minds over his genius. Being super practical, the kid argues that a rock-solid company drilling to zero with no news could literally only be a human error. Stunned by how ice-cold he is, the researcher asks if he seriously ran that math while the entire market was screaming in panic. He just shrugs with a confident smile, reminding her that this is literally his job at the end of the day. Letting out a funny sigh, the coworker gives up trying to understand his brain and admits she can't even get surprised by his W's anymore. Changing the topic, she pulls out her phone looking super hyped and tells the kid he urgently needs to watch a new short they posted. The screen plays the exact clip of our MC swearing the semiconductor bet was going to be the ultimate comeback play. The veteran tells him to check the comment section, blown away by the massive engagement from the internet crowd. The app is flooded with comments from investors, swearing they aped into the stock purely because of the kid's absolute confidence. Reading that the analyst looks visibly stressed and doesn't get why people are blindly following his financial advice. Laughing at how naive he is, the researcher reminds him she already told him how desperate the tech bag holders were. She figures the internet trusts him because literally every single one of his predictions has been flawless so far. The girl claims it's obvious the crowd would go feral over a clip like that and mentions the marketing rival loves farming drama. Curious about the fallout, she wonders what the suit will do if the stock moons and asks if her friend lost his nerve. The analyst admits reading those comments made him realize how insanely heavy his words are, promising to be way more careful from now on. Despite sweating over the responsibility, he breaks into a soft smile and swears that at least his bet was on semiconductors. The researcher wants to know if he's seriously that certain about the gains, and the kid confirms without blinking that the numbers are going to explode. Out of nowhere, a furious booming yell cuts through the chill morning vibe of the duo. Annoyed by the tantrum, the veteran crosses her arms and asks if coworkers are banned from talking in the office now. Radiating pure rage, assistant manager Lee accuses the two of acting like they own the branch and tells them to shut up. Refusing to back down, Ji throws it in the rich kid's face that he was the loudest one laughing on the floor back when he was winning. Completely disarmed by the employee's savage clapback, the loser steps back, stunned by her sheer audacity. Taking the opening, our MC coldly points out that the film crew is already rolling cameras in the back of the room. Sweating bullets from pure embarrassment, the rival grits his teeth and growls when he realizes his meltdown is being recorded. With zero way to save face, he turns his back in a hurry and demands they at least show a little bit of consideration. The veteran whispers that the idiot is only throwing a tantrum because the entire internet is currently roasting him alive in the comments. Yoon heavily agrees, remembering the arrogant suit told the public to diamond hand the dead naval stock, making a ton of people lose their money. Public opinion completely turns on assistant manager Lee as the rich kid gets absolutely shredded online by furious investors who took his advice. Pissed off about their massive bags, the clients demand to know how he's going to pay back all the hard-earned cash they lost in his trap. Ignoring the drama, Yoon locks his eyes on his monitor to check the final tournament leaderboard after the market's chaotic plot twist. The refreshed bracket shows our MC sitting alone in first place with a massive lead, while his rival took a brutal nosedive straight into humiliating fifth place. The tense silence of the room is shattered by the kid's desktop messenger pinging, totally catching him off guard. The mystery app drops a nuke, leaking that Yuseong Semiconductors just inked $1 billion deal with the massive foreign telecom giant. Reading that explosive intel, the analyst radiates pure confidence, internally popping off over his absolute victory in front of his screen. Startled by her coworker suddenly getting hyped, researcher Ji peeks over the wall, trying to see if his crazy YOLO bet actually printed. The veteran analyzes the data, totally mind blown as she realizes that one colossal contract just dragged the entire tech sector straight to the moon. Agreeing with his teammate, the kid explains the sector just needed one solid excuse to V-shape recover from that brutal crash. Hyped by the insane comeback, the girl points out everything played out exactly like the rookie predicted in his controversial reality show interview. Keeping his intensely professional vibe, he claims this structural rock-solid foundation was always the company's hidden trump card. The employee breaks down how the firm ditched their basic memory chip dependency and diversified, weaponizing their god-tier tech to print money. Despite having all the confidence in the world, our MC admits with a sigh of relief that he never guessed the final contract would be this unbelievably massive. The hyped conversation gets cut off when two suits from the branch creep up and hesitantly call his name. One of the guys awkwardly rubs the back of his neck and asks if he can get some quick Wall Street advice from the new local genius. The man admits he's super insecure about a chunk of his own portfolio and begs the analyst to audit his bags when he gets a second. Seeing an opening, another employee jumps in right behind him, begging the kid to harshly review his assets ASAP. Watching the pathetic display, Ji crosses her arms, totally disgusted by the sheer nerve of the same crew who bullied the rookie every single day. Completely ignoring the weird vibe and their toxic past, our MC sticks to his ironclad ethics and audits his co-workers' files with 100% dedication. A little while later, the scene cuts to the massive packed auditorium at HQ, where the official closing ceremony for the tournament finally kicks off. The MC thanks everyone for sweating blood during the event and announces they'll reveal the ultimate champion right after a quick Vipe message. Immediately, VP Sim walks up to the stage while the crowd claps, ready to drop the board's final verdict on their reality show experiment. Taking the mic, the big boss swears he tracked the flawless performance of every single competitor through the endless hours of raw footage. Hyping up the brutal internet engagement, the executive happily announces the firm's channel just skyrocketed straight to #2 nationally. The leader glazes the elite mindset of certain analysts who perfectly showcased the company's moral values while the cameras were rolling. Throwing a deadly silent glare right at assistant manager Lee, the boss brutally notes that some players were a massive disappointment. Cutting the heavy tension, the man asks everyone to squash the beef and keep bleeding for the success of their own departments. Dropping the mic with an epic sign off, the VP says thanks one last time, getting hit with another wave of hyped applause from the suits. Getting the show back on the road, the host announces it's finally time for the most anticipated moment, dropping the name of the gold medalist. Building the suspense, the MC reads the stat sheet and leaks that the ultimate champion hit an absurd milestone of almost 30% profit. Yoon's name blasts through the massive speakers of the luxury hall, cementing his total annihilation of the firm's elite upper crust. Swarmed by shook competitors, the kid gets hyped up by the squad while his partner Yeon Ji pops off right next to him. Swallowing his shattered ego, the assistant manager clicks his tongue in pure disgust, absolutely refusing to accept his humiliating L on national television. Exactly 1 week after the stressful tournament, the story snaps back to the chill branch office where the young guy is patiently working the desk. Shooting another fun segment for the YouTube channel, the kid tells the producer he took an incredibly chill vacation to reset his brain. Radiating good vibes for the camera, the analyst reveals he spent his time off totally nerding out on research, hyper focusing on the assets he knows best. The marketing guy freezes at that psycho answer and jokes that a hardcore study grind is literally the exact opposite of chilling out. Totally missing the corporate joke, our MC tilts his head, genuinely thinking his vacation plans were perfectly normal. The guy explains normal people usually travel or sleep on their days off, making the analyst agree and point out he also went outside to walk around. Snapping back to his flawless pro mode, he details he was stalking the retail sector, guided closely by his researcher friend who runs that space. The marketing bro instantly pieces it together, realizing the kid's little walk was literally just an excuse to do stealth market research. Super embarrassed about getting busted, the protagonist admits he's obsessed with finance, but defends himself, saying he only had time because he wasn't on the clock. Blown away by his blind dedication, the interviewer hypes the hustle and flat out states this ruthless grind is exactly what made him a champion. Spotting the ultimate chance to farm views, the producer drops the heavy question, asking if the winner's life changed a lot after taking the trophy home. Hit with the marketing guy's sharp question, the kid silently processes the absolute roller coaster of events that just flipped his life upside down. Utterly confident in himself and his choices, he shoots straight, saying his rank inside the corporate giant got a tiny little update. Checking out the rookie's fresh strip, the coworker points out the suit is super expensive and spots a flashy gold badge pinned right to his lapel. The camera lens zooms straight into the elite accessory on his chest, while the interviewer admits he's never seen that specific flex before. Leaving the audience hanging on a massive cliffhanger, the video cuts to the kid chilling comfortably inside the VP's private office. The veteran executive hands over 2 heavy-duty promotion letters, swearing the kid's god-tier run proved he belongs on any elite squad in the building. Despite the massive honor, the analyst politely rejects the envelopes and hands the files back, thanking the boss from the bottom of his heart for believing in him. Radiating pure moral iron, our MC clarifies he only traveled up to the almighty HQ because his corporate endgame was already locked in his brain. Snapping back to the present reality show shoot, the young guy totally kills the mystery about his new rank and points straight at his chest. With insane clarity, he drops the lore that this fancy badge is only handed to senior managers who have absolute clearance to trade heavy capital. Catching the sheer magnitude of that insane promotion, the producer sits up totally fascinated and says he needs every single detail of this epic lore. The guy excitedly mentions the online finance community literally went feral after the finals, desperate to know where their genius ended up. Accepting the challenge to write his own legend, the analyst adjusts his tie, locking into the dignified, commanding aura of a legendary wealth manager. Looking dead center into the lens, he drops a gentle, respectful greeting to all the loyal new subs tracking his journey. With zero fluff, he declares his absolute loyalty to the Seongnam branch and proudly introduces himself as their most powerful private banker. Quick cutting back to the intense boardroom chat, the executive asks in a fatherly tone if the young prodigy is absolutely sure he won't regret this. Sticking to the hardcore conviction that always guides him, our MC rejects the idea of failing and swears his decision is structurally impossible to break. The wise VP agrees with the kid's flawless logistics, admitting that throwing himself straight into the fire of private wealth management is the ultimate training arc. The older boss warns that getting swallowed by a mega fund right now would just trap him as a paper-pushing grunt taking orders from average suits. Wrapping up the lesson, the chief states that building a resume packed with hardcore physical profits will be his ultimate weapon later, and the kid totally agrees. The big shot ends the meeting by reminding him that on Wall Street's bloody chessboard, raw numbers matter infinitely more than some empty fancy title. Soaking up the weight of going solo, Yoon promises to use the chaotic suburban counter to level up and prove his true worth to the whales. Back at the branch shoot, the marketing guy announces he's out of questions and asks the kid to drop an emotional outro for the channel. Super grateful for the random fame that found him, the new manager stares into the rig and deeply thanks the internet for all the insane love. Running his pen over the contracts of new millionaires, the employee swears he knows exactly how terrifying it is to hand your life savings over to the market. Because he carries the brutal weight of that trust, he vows to relentlessly study the trends and the lives of every single person brave enough to walk up to his desk. Staring proudly at the sunny facade of the building that almost crushed his dreams, the kid promises to fight to the death to be the ultimate safe haven for desperate investors. Bowing deeply with pure financial devotion, the champ drops one last genuine thank you for the endless support during his war in the market. As soon as the epic outro is secured, the marketing director calls a wrap, hyping up how absolutely flawless and chilling that final take was. While tearing down the set, the coworker drops the ultimate W of the day, revealing the reality show shattered the algorithm and pulled in 40,000 new subs. Taking over the new spot, manager Ryu Tahua calls the kid's name, looking incredibly proud. The boss drops a super sincere thank you for all the blood and sweat the employee poured into the brokerage so far. In the chill vibe of the office, the two pros just talk it out smoothly. Respecting his own grind, Yoon nods, agreeing he literally bled to reach this point. Right then he pops open the drawer of his brand new desk, revealing a super special item stashed inside. Holding his official fund manager nameplate, our MC swears this achievement isn't the endgame, just the tutorial reward for his hustle. Locked onto the future, he promises to keep climbing the ladder with everything he's got until he hits his actual final boss goal. Slamming the nameplate on the desk, the young guy declares his real Wall Street saga is officially starting right now. A little while later, the mood flips to a hardcore meeting at the branch where the manager thanks the squad for grinding so hard today. With the whole crew sitting around the table, Ryu warns them he needs to bring up something pretty toxic. Being totally real, the boss explains the market has been absolute garbage lately and HQ is just dialing up the pressure every single day. He leaks that the board is demanding every branch and solo manager hit their monthly profit quotas, no excuses. But the leader chills the room out, swearing he'll carry the entire weight of HQ's wrath on his own back as long as he's in charge. Backing up his moral code, the manager demands everyone keep putting the client's safety over pushing random sales. The staff nods along with the order and thanks him for tanking the aggro, wrapping up the meeting with total mutual respect. As the room clears out, the manager asks our MC to hang back for a quick one-on-one. The boss reminds the kid he's officially a junior manager now and warns him about the brutal quotas hitting in the next 6 months. Staring the kid down, the boss warns this gig puts a massive target on his back from HQ, but says he trusts him to crush it. As a final piece of advice, Ryu begs him to be super careful and never throw clients under the bus when the corporate pressure gets too heavy. Hearing the warning, the rookie nods instantly and promises to lock those words in his brain forever. Far away in the elite HQ department, head John Sung Jae is running a super toxic meeting with the top brass. Checking the metrics, the suit demands to know which branch tanked the hardest this month. One of the underlings quickly answers that Seongnam and Dongdaegu are scraping the absolute bottom of the barrel. Pissed at the answer, the director asks how a god-tier branch that was always number one just randomly dived into the dirt. Trying to find someone to blame, he scowls and asks if Ryu Tahua is still running the show over there. Confirming it, John bullies the subordinate next to him, demanding to know if he actually called out the failing branch manager. The boss accuses the guy of going soft and acting like a coward just because Ryu is an older veteran in the company. Getting publicly roasted in the middle of the room, team leader Kim gulps and drops his head, too terrified to clap back. Radiating pure rage, John screams that the guy's actual job is to squeeze the branches dry, not play nice with the old-timers. The director mocks the whole situation, sarcastically asking if Ryu still thinks he's part of the elite strategic division. Crushing the subordinate even more, the boss asks if the guy is scared of the veteran but not terrified of him. Furious over the bleeding profits, the director yells, wanting to know whose fault it is that a cash cow branch died the second Ryu walked in. Totally broken by the bullying, Kim caves to the pressure and throws the branch manager entirely under the bus. But John points his finger right in the guy's face and declares it's also his fault for being such a weak link. Grabbing the whole room's attention, the leader drops a massive warning about the squad's pathetic lack of professionalism. He announces that anyone who puts their feelings over the company's profit can just hand in their badge and get out. Running the math in his head, John wonders if that bastard manager still thinks the VP is going to save him. With a totally calculating look, the director vows to finally put his nemesis in the dirt for good. Snapping back, he orders team leader Kim to prep the audit paperwork ASAP. The suit declares a ruthless scorched earth audit is hitting the Seongnam branch next month. Feeling the noose tighten, the subordinate nods and promises to have the files ready in time. Finishing off his psychological torture, John reminds them that branch metrics directly affect everyone's wallets in this room. He drops a heavy threat, saying nobody is getting a single dime of bonus pay if the numbers stay this garbage. Cutting back to the branch, Yoon-do Kyung answers the phone at his new VIP desk. Using a flawless professional voice, the kid introduces himself, saying he'll be taking exclusive control of the client's funds. On the other end, the client sounds nervous, asking if he got pawned off to a new broker because his account is too small. Yoon immediately kills the rumor, swearing he only took over the account so he could offer way more solid asset management. Hearing the polite explanation, the guy lets out a sigh of relief, totally getting it. Keeping the vibe super welcoming, the analyst respectfully calls the client by name to build trust. Our MC promises that Yusong will literally do whatever it takes to shield and multiply his bag. Hyped by the attitude, the investor asks the kid to hit him up immediately if the market starts acting sketchy. Yoon tells the guy he can call or text literally anytime and he'll handle it personally. While wrapping up the solid chat, the new manager keeps his eyes locked on his client roster charts. Thanking him for his business, the employee says goodbye and hangs up super chill. Letting out a massive sigh, the young guy leans back and admits to himself that this new gig is going to be brutally hard. A knock on the door interrupts his break, and he quickly gives the green light to come in. His old client and long-time bro walks in, complaining that he heard rumors about the kid getting promoted. The old man fakes being super offended, asking why the hell he didn't get a phone call about the news and had to show up in person. Jumping out of his chair, the analyst apologizes a million times for the bad communication, agreeing it shouldn't be this hard to meet up. The boomer grumbles that the front desk messed up again, trying to pawn him off to a different sector when he specifically asked for the VIP manager. The client drops the tea that the tellers claimed Yoon only handled the small fry accounts now. Flexing his absolute loyalty, the old man calls the staff idiots for knowing literally nothing about what investors actually want. Super touched by the hardcore defense, our MC says thanks from the bottom of his heart, admitting those words mean the world to him. Switching gears, the old guy proudly mentions he even watched the kids' YouTube videos on the firm's channel. Hyped about the tournament, the investor jokes he almost jumped out of his chair watching the kid and praises his insane grind. The analyst appreciates the support, thanking the man for actually spending his busy day watching that content. Dropping a small bottle of liquor on the desk, the old man kills the small talk and cuts straight to the real reason he showed up. Locked in on business, Yoon asks with serious interest how much capital he's looking to move. The old man argues that since the kid is a big shot manager, now it's his job to pull massive whales into the firm. Backing him up, the man points at the nameplate celebrating the kid's first real step into the big leagues. With that, he brings up their old chat about the fat stack of cash he wanted to leave for his grandkids. Blindsiding the employee, the VP reveals he wants to hand over the absolute total control of that fortune to him. The old man casually asks if a few $100 million would be enough to get the ball rolling. Completely floored by the amount, Yoon's eyes bug out and he confesses that bag is way too heavy for him to manage on day one. Ignoring the kid's panic, the old man complains the brokerage is blind for handing such a garbage limit to a massive talent like him. Handing over his bank book, the elderly client orders the kid to transfer the entire balance so he can manage it all. Holding the book with total respect, Yoon gives a massive thank you for the insane level of trust. But the second he checks the printed numbers, our MC freezes in absolute shock and mutters, calling the man father out of pure respect. Finding his mind blown reaction hilarious, the old man laughs out loud and asks if the stack is too small. Sweating bullets from pure anxiety, the new manager holds up the book and explains the problem is the exact opposite since the balance is sitting at 1,400,000,000 won. The old man finds it super funny, saying he's never seen a Wall Street guy complain about a client handing over too much money. Keeping it friendly, he tells the kid to just treat it like his personal retirement fund, promising that with this kind of capital, the young guy can walk around the office like he owns the place. Worried about the client's safety, Yoon warns that with a bag this massive, he doesn't need to stay at the basic Shangnam branch and could easily move to the exclusive VIP agency. But the old man raises his hand, instantly shutting down the pitch, saying he could obviously go chat with the veterans over there if he wanted to. He drops the final logic, pointing out the massive flaw is that his favorite analyst wouldn't be working in that building. Holding up two fingers, the elderly investor drops some wisdom, saying that as he gets older, he realizes only two things keep growing. Number one is his absolute ironclad stubbornness to do things his own way, and number two is his god-tier radar for spotting real talent the second he sees it. Beating his chest with pride, the man admits people can call him a boomer, but those two traits are exactly what built his current corporate empire. Pointing right at his own face, he firmly declares that this exact same trained eye is guaranteeing the kid is built totally different from every other suit in the market. With absolute conviction, the whale announces he's putting his retirement and his grandson's future entirely in the kid's hands, giving him the ultimate green light to invest it however he wants. Our MC jumps out of his chair, finally realizing the insane level of power this guy holds, and respectfully addresses him as president. Overflowing with gratitude, Yoon drops a deep bow to thank him for this golden opportunity. With a look of absolute determination, he swears he'll do whatever it takes to multiply the bag, securing a luxury future for the grandson and a chill retirement for the boss. The president gives the kid a friendly pat on the back, hyping up his new confident swagger and saying he loves seeing him like this. But the old man jokes around, asking if the broker only changed how he addresses him just because he got handed a massive bag of cash. Super embarrassed by the friendly roast, the employee scratches his head and lets out a nervous laugh. Left alone at his trading desk, our MC thinks about the colossal wave of capital that just crashed into his lap. Staring at the millionaire's bank book, he realizes that way more money equals way more risk, plus he's carrying the absolute trust of a man he sees as a father figure. Out of nowhere, his phone screen lights up with a new Vipe alert pointing straight at the construction company Du Minwon, which totally trips the kid out, making him wonder if the system is actually spying on him 24/7. The analyst agrees the tip's timing is literally perfect, but complains the app once again ghosted him on the actual reason for the pump. Dropping his phone on the desk, he figures he has zero choice but to go full detective and dig up the truth himself. To crack the code, the young guy hypes himself up to dive headfirst into the financial reports of both Du Construction and Minwon. The next day, the chill office vibe gets interrupted by Assistant Choi, who walks up calling his buddy a superstar and hyping the massive new funds he secured. Confused by the random nickname, Yoon stops typing and just repeats the word, having no idea what's going on. The assistant explains the kid is about to become the absolute MVP of the branch, but our MC rejects the glazing and tells his partner to drop it. Keeping the chat going, the coworker mentions he heard the rumors that the rookie managed to lock down a massive initial deposit from the president who visited yesterday. Right then, the boss sits in the chair next to him and jokes that if his buddy is already flying this high on day one, it's going to be tough for the veterans to even justify their paychecks. Blown away by the W, Choi praises the tycoon's guts, saying that when he decides to back someone, he goes all in, and he definitely picked the right guy this time. Flashing a genuine smile, the analyst confirms he is unbelievably grateful for all the trust he's getting. Wasting no time, the assistant leans on the desk and asks if the kid has been eyeing any spicy stocks lately. Sliding a folder across the table, Yoon calmly replies he spent a massive chunk of time auditing the Du company. His coworker is totally shook by the pick and demands to know why he'd ever focus on that dumpster fire, especially since their CEO is literally about to get locked up. The guy explains the corporation got nuked by accusations of embezzlement and breach of trust by the owner's family, turning them into the main target of a brutal prosecutor investigation. With the media breathing down their necks, the holding company's shares that used to sit at 20,001 just totally melted down to the 8,000 range, completely flatlining their trading volume. Suspicious Choi asks if he only got interested because the asset tanked, but quickly backs off, remembering his partner always has a bulletproof reason for every play. Our MC hands over a printed chart, politely asking the veteran to take a really good look at those numbers. Checking out the file, the coworker mutters that the overall trend is just pure bleeding, but suddenly spots a super weird detail that catches his eye. Pointing at a gigantic red candle right in the middle of the chart, the boss asks what the hell caused that freakish spike in trading volume. Locked onto his monitor, Yoon reveals that a massive bank dumped over 5 million shares, but it looks like someone intercepted the play and bought up literally the entire bag. Tripping over the insane volume, the assistant asks if there was any kind of public disclosure about this sketchy block trade. Our MC confirms it, explaining that a giant foreign asset manager called Eastern dumped the shares, forcing the price to crater even harder. Putting the pieces together, Choi realizes the foreigners dumped everything and asks if another institution instantly scooped the whole bag right after. Looking at the order flow, Yoon confirms it leaking that a fund called Steel Life bought every single share and was forced to file a public declaration because they crossed the 5% ownership threshold. The coworker notes the fund tried to mask the play by calling it a simple investment, but admits he's literally never heard of that firm in his life. The kid admits it was also his first time seeing that name, so he went down the rabbit hole and found a seriously spicy article about them. Hooked on the lore, the veteran asks what the article was about, while the analyst shoots back asking if his partner remembers the legendary Yujiro Corp incident in Japan. The man says it's impossible to forget, since that was an absolute masterpiece pulled off by Carl Sutton, the undisputed god of aggressive M&A in the market. Explaining the dark strat, the kid reveals that during that brutal raid on the Japanese chemical firm, the legendary whale wasn't acting alone and had a shadow ally. The shock hits the assistant's face instantly as he connects the sinister link to Steel Life, and our MC declares that this foreign syndicate is now aiming to completely annihilate Du Construction. Closing out the terrifying thesis of his financial audit, Yoon warns that these suits aren't here to play games, declaring that the national company is about to get targeted by ruthless corporate raiders.